They do that to prevent people from shooting up schools and shit on video.
Oh, I just figured out how to make it so people could hear me at least.
Yeah, did you know if you just show a gun in a live stream, they will delete your stream?
Yeah. Wait, can you guys hear everything now, or can you only just hear me? Someone tell me in chat.
I don't know. I'm watching shorts while I'm waiting.
Oh, they're all saying they can hear now, so fuck it.
Yeah. So guys, can you hear my voice?
Type gun emoji if you can hear Ephraim talking.
Yeah. Type gun emoji.
Type white power if you can hear Ephraim talking.
Yeah. Okay, I just checked out the stream. I can hear shit. That's helpful.
Okay.
Let's go.
Now I'm gonna make it so everyone can actually see Discord, so they can know who's being racist.
Hey, Monstrous.
What?
Are you gonna link the stream in the?
Oh, does it work now?
Yes, it works.
We're so back.
Hey, Monstrous, do you know how to work a stream?
I know how to stream. I actually
No, you don't. So go shut up. You're a
yes,
woman.
I do.
You're a woman and a
yes,
minority. Experted out.
She frequently streamed from the kitchen.
Oh, dude, based.
Anyway, are we ready? Are we starting?
Yeah, everyone is telling me that everyone's like, we can finally hear you. So yeah.
Cool. Before we start, just for fun, I've been doing this every time now. According to the poll that I started, I don't know, 4 hours ago, who will sense about how the chat always wins. Not Gilded, not Ephraim, but everyone does want to know why this call is happening. So, all right, go ahead and start.
Okay. So, do you want to do an opening statement first, Gilded, or you want me to?
I can do it first. That's fine.
Yeah, I think that'd probably be the best.
Okay, mine's really simple. If it moves in the Gaza Strip, continue to fire until it doesn't, and then Israel should annex the entire region. War over, problem solved. Gaza Strip, the end.
Okay, well, I don't agree with any of that. As should be imaginable, I think killing people is usually a bad thing unless in immediate self-defense. I think that annexation is a bad idea. And in general, I think that we should be working towards peace, although I know from previous conversations I've had with you that peace is not exactly one of your values.
Sure. Is that your opening statement?
Basically.
Okay, cool. So what do you mean by only reserved for self-defense? Can you expand on that?
I mean, the way I view it is, now mind you, in times of conflict, there are going to naturally have to be exceptions. However, I tend to view killing as only something that should be done if there is literally no other option. In the same regard, I view warfare as something that has to be done as a last resort and literally nothing else. And I do not feel like Israel has met that requirement yet. I do not feel like, because there have been multiple times where peace plans have been offered and they've shot it down. This happened to the UN several times. Or no, it wasn't the U.S. that shot it down. It wasn't Israel that shot it down. It was the U.S. that primarily shot it down because they're actually on the Security Council. Well, it depends. Sometimes, usually not, though.
Oftentimes they did. Actually, the initial deal was shut down, and they reacted with, a bombing run with airplanes. 1948, yeah.
I mean, in that case, it was primarily a reaction to something occurring quite literally out of nowhere with no recommendation from them. The original idea behind Zionism, the person who created it, I believe, was Theodore Herzl, I think is what his name was.
I mean, we can agree that it's Britain's fault in this case, though, I think.
Okay.
I blame Britain. And if we go down far enough through the history chain, we will probably find somebody who is related to Beckett that is to blame.
Have you guys ever considered not being so fucking uppity all the time?
Absolutely not.
But anyway, jokes aside, what do you mean by Zionists?
Well, I mean, in this context, when I said that Hatzel was the father of Zionism, I meant that he was the first person, not throughout all of history, but at least in the modern way we think of it, that proposed having the Jewish people get a home state in what is currently called Israel. Now, again, not the first guy ever to propose it, but he's typically considered the father of modern Zionism at the very least.
And what's wrong with that?
Well, it was in this case, it was primarily that his ideas were based on the idea that the land in question was completely empty. That was one of the reasons he thought this would be a good place, and that's just turned out to not be true.
Well, a large part of it was completely empty and destroyed. It was a shithole. But being sure, you could say hashtag not all. I mean, cool. But that wasn't the only thing it was based on. It was also based on the fact that nobody wanted the Jews. Like, Britain was literally locking Jews in cages, ready to ship them out after World War II.
Now, that is true, don't get me wrong. However, that doesn't inherently justify what occurred next. Would you at least agree on that? Now, that is true, don't get me wrong.
What occurred next?
I'm referring to if you're saying that anti-Semitism was a motivation for the creation of Israel, even though anti-Semitism is bad, don't get me wrong, that doesn't justify
Okay, we'll put it another way. Palestine was never actually a country. Like that's like the first point I want to point out here. It was a territory that was originally owned by the Ottoman Empire and then was later owned by the British. And ultimately the British got to decide who got to reside where. And the deal that the British tried to strike was a kind of a quasi 50-50 split between the people that already lived there and the Jewish refugees, and that was an agreement the Palestinians disagreed with.
That's the 47 plan, right?
Yes.
Now, if memory serves, a lot of the people on the Israeli side who agreed with it at the time primarily did so in hopes they would later be able to convince others to expand the amount of territory they had.
Okay. I've never seen that anywhere, but all right. Like the amount of stuff the Jews, or the amount of land the Jews were going to get was going to be significantly smaller than the amount that the Arabs that reside there were going to get. I mean, again, like you gotta understand, the people that resided there had no claim to that to that region. That was a British region.
Well, the British, in my opinion, shouldn't have owned it in the first place. But even if we ignore that, because I'm against imperialism.
What's wrong with imperialism?
It's essentially, in most cases, it's a fancy way of saying theft.
How is it theft? It's not theft at all.
It is going over to somebody else's nation and taking their resources.
That isn't theft. That is victory.
Okay. I don't really think those are inherently mutually exclusive.
If I take something without your knowledge, that is theft. Or if I just take something and be like, yo, I took this, what you gonna do about it? You could call that theft. But if I declare war on you and I take land that you were not strong enough to hold, it's not my fault that you couldn't beat me.
I mean, but I still would call it unjustified to attempt to do so in the first place. You were asking what's wrong with that.
Why is that?
Because I view war as a negative thing.
But it's an inevitable thing. Like, there's absolutely nothing you can do to stop it.
There are tons of things that are inevitable. That doesn't make them good.
I'm not necessarily saying it's good. I'm saying that it's neither good nor bad. I think it's think war is an inherently neutral act of inevitability.
Okay, well, what do you think makes it inevitable? I'm not even disagreeing with you on that. I do think that conflict, at the very least, is inevitable. I don't know if the specific way we think of when we think of warfare is inherently inevitable, but I will grant you that just for the sake of argument. What do you think makes it inevitable?
Humans merely existing makes it inevitable. There has been no time in there's been one time in human history where there was no war for an extended period, and I think that was a period of like 4 years. Mankind has been at war with itself in every nation since the dawning of mankind. It is likely that cavemen even fought each other over fucking cave mushrooms, right? So the thing is that at the end of the day, right, when you say war is bad, I mean, that's like saying death sucks, right? Or saying that, fuck, man, them taxes, though, man, like, it's kind of a waste of time. The better question isn't whether or not war is bad, and it's not a question of whether or not the war is virtuous. The question is fundamentally what are the justifications for it, right? And you can debate the justifications all day long if you want, but to say that war itself innately is bad, it's somehow in the same vein as, say, I don't know, genocide, I think is fundamentally skewed.
Okay. Well, first off, I want to note that anthropologists have primarily determined that early Paleolithic people were way more peaceful than previously thought.
I mean, there was also Paleolithic fucking cannibals, all right? So, like, what do you mean?
I mean that that conflict was actually rather rare and that peaceful trade was way more common.
To be fair, also, they were also way more isolated. I think one of the major issues as well, aside from people merely existing, is that we're moving closer and closer to being, well, closer and closer than ever before.
So do you think that maybe this interconnectivity is causing more conflicts?
I think it makes the inevitable far more frequent.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say this. In my view, even if it is inevitable, I still think we should be trying to put safeguards in place to prevent it from happening as frequently as possible.
Yeah, and I think one of the best safeguards to do that is to ensure that people that attack you don't live to do it again.
That is been proven time and time again to not work as a safeguard.
I don't know. Like, if I wipe out an entire country, actually, I'll put it another way. It worked whenever we nuked Japan. I don't see Japan touching our boats anymore.
That was because we then played a large role in building them up into a democracy and forged a partnership with them in the 40s.
Correct. And I think if we did similar to the Gaza Strip, but also annexed it, I think the results would be very similar. Maybe give them their own nation somewhere down the line after they've been de-radicalized, if there's any left to de-radicalize.
Okay, well, in that situation, if you want to talk about building it up into a functioning, I guess it wouldn't really be a nation in your hypothetical. It'd be more a territory or like a state.
Yeah, like territory,
Yeah, then I don't inherently see an issue with that. I do think, however, your first plan of bombing them back into the Stone Age, to borrow a line from Curtis LeMay, is not going to do anything to de-radicalize anybody.
I mean, neither is not responding to terrorism.
Well, what do you mean by respond? Well, that's a bit of a false dichotomy. You can respond without, like, dropping bombs on everyone and everything.
Yeah, and I don't think that works. I don't think negotiating with terrorists is a good strategy, especially since we have tried negotiating, and by we, I shouldn't say we, the Israelis and the UN have tried repeatedly to negotiate with leaders of Palestine or the Palestinian movement, and nothing. They often say, "Oh yeah," and then they back off. I mean, do you know how many bombs have been dropped towards Israel, like since 1995, like since Hamas got into power?
Hamas got into power in 2006.
Oh, sorry, I meant 2006, whatever. I don't know why I said 1995. But whatever, 2006. You know how many bombs since 2006 have been dropped on Israel?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay,
but
hundreds yearly to an upwards of thousands yearly. Like, there's actually a list you can find of every bomb incident where Palestine has attempted to bomb Israel. This is an ongoing thing. This hasn't ended. Like, October 7th wasn't some isolated, like, magical incident, right? This is like a daily occurrence, to the extreme that your typical Israeli actually has a safe house or a safe room in their home for when the bombs come. Like as if it's some kind of natural disaster, like a tornado you need to hide in the basement from.
Now, I'm under no delusion that the population of Gaza is radicalized. I am not going to sit here and pretend otherwise. I am going to make a couple of notes, though. The first one is, have you ever read the book Blowback?
No.
It was a book about suicide bombings that was released in 2005, if I'm not mistaken. And it essentially made the case that the primary reason why people become radicalized is because of bombs being dropped by the people they're radicalized against. Now, this is not to say that every single radical has this backstory, but this is to say a decent amount of them do. If you look at Hamas's approval ratings in Gaza, they actually were rather low for several years and only first spiked back up back in 2014. Because that was when there was an air-based conflict.
Cool. And then after October 7th, it went up to over 90% approval.
Yeah, because war makes people like their government more.
It wasn't even war. It was straight up terrorism. It wasn't a war until Israel replied.
What do you mean? Are you saying that the attacks on October 7th were actually the reason why the approval went up?
Absolutely, yes. That's exactly what happened, yes.
Okay, well, I have not personally seen evidence of that.
Yeah, the evidence was spammed literally in almost every mainstream article, within days after the attack, and they were talking about the approval ratings.
I'll look it up right now. I will look it up right now. Hamas approval ratings in Gaza, and then I'll look. Let's try over time. Over time. Wait, you said it was over 90%?
Yeah, some say it was 50%. Some say it was whatever the consensus.
That's a pretty big margin of error.
Yeah, but the consensus was around 70 to 90%.
Okay, because the first thing
it depends on who the guys who did the poll was.
Well,
so, for example, CNN. The articles I read said that the approval was like 45% after October 7th.
Yeah, I'm looking at one from the Associated Press that says 44%.
Yeah, but I went to Reuters and it says 72%.
Okay. Well, in that case, I would say that these numbers are too unreliable to really get a decent understanding of what the population of Gaza thinks based off of them. I mean, these are massive margins of error.
I think there a lot of them is politically motivated, right? So if you pick a politically biased source, like for example, if I went to Fox, I'm sure it'll say something like fucking 99.9% of people or some crazy shit, right? So
Okay, well,
I can't remember what the original. I had one that was like a what is that fucking called, where they take all the stats and average them out.
that's, I think, just a scientific poll.
Yeah, it was, but I can't remember what the site was. But yeah, but no, there was one that did that, and it was like something like 80%.
Okay, well, I'm not seeing any. I'm not
Okay,
going
okay.
to say for
Let
sure.
me ask you a question then.
Okay.
Great question. You conceded that the Palestinians were radicalized, right?
I conceded that there definitely was a radicalized aspect among them, yes.
Okay, are you aware that the Palestinians, the teachers and shit, like actually teach these kids like Nazi-esque argument? Like, for example, they actually have a Arabic version of Mein Kampf that they read to children like a fucking textbook. Were you aware of that?
I didn't know that specifically. That wouldn't surprise me, though.
Yeah, did
And
you
in
also
fact,
know that they give children, like as young as 8 years old, military training and teach them to kill the Jews?
I've never heard that and would like a citation for that.
I actually just saw a video on it last night. Hold on.
Oh, really? Well, send it my way. Not saying, again, just would like to see the evidence.
Ironically, too, it was on Dr. Phil of all places. The footage.
That is bizarre, to say the least. I'm not going to deny that. Somebody in chat just mentioned Tomorrow's Pioneers. That was a very famous anti-Semitic children's show from Gaza from back in 2007. However, first off, I'd argue that the entire Middle East has a bit of an anti-Semitism issue.
Correct.
In Saudi Arabia, if I'm not mistaken, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which I assume you know what that is, Gilded.
Yes. Well, anyway, hold on. I'm sharing the screen of what I was talking about.
Okay.
Are you watching it?
I am.
In school curriculum that glorify terror related with the belief that any street destruction. All of this occurs in plain sight, within the watchful eye, and have already received military training.
فلسطين عرب.
I think you get the
Yeah.
point.
The Middle East having a similar problem because are you in favor of us doing the same across the entire Middle East?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, I'll give you points for consistency.
Yeah, I mean, like, no, fuck them. Like, I don't give a shit. Right now, granted, I wouldn't say it's the entire Middle East. To be fair, for example, Saudi Arabia seems to be pretty sympathetic to Israel. Now, granted, Saudi Arabia would also be arguably wishy-washy, to say the least. But yeah, like countries like Lebanon, Iran, that directly funds multiple attacks, not only on Israelis, but also Americans to date, by the way. Yeah, like, no, fuck them. Wipe them out. All of them, right? Like, I don't give a shit. Like, I think that Islam is a complete blight on humanity.
Okay. Well, nobody's accused you of being timid.
No, like, I'm just dead serious. Like, the thing is that unless Islam decides to, chill out, which, by the way, it is in some areas, right? So, for example, Kuwait, seems to be pretty chill. A lot of them have become very westernized and very very much less dogmatic in their theological views. Another issue that, though, however, is that worldwide, the Islam is one of the number one reasons behind the majority of terror attacks worldwide. Like, Islam is actually a legitimate international issue, and nobody wants to address it because they're too afraid of being called Islamophobic. This is also one of the fundamental issues with the Israeli-Palestine debate, because the majority of the people supporting Palestine are doing it, one, because they think that all the Palestinians are like fucking Robin Hood, and number two, more importantly than that, they're like really afraid of being called Islamophobic.
Well, I can say right now that for an issue that nobody seems to want to talk about, there is a lot of discussion surrounding it, to say the very least.
I didn't say nobody wanted to talk about it.
Okay, well then I might have misheard you.
What I'm saying is that of the people that are the majority of people that are willing to criticize Palestine, they are more likely to be quiet because out of fear of being called Islamophobic. And I'm just talking about your general pleb, right? Like, you go on a Discord, you talk to the average person, they might say something like, I'm sympathetic to Palestine, but, I think they have a lot of problems. I think October 7th was messed up. They can't just say, yeah, fucking wipe them out, right? Which or they can't just say, like, they deserved it, look what they did. They can't just say October 7th was the reason for which all of this should have occurred a long time ago. They can't even give, even the tiniest amount of criticism towards Palestine without somebody on the internet calling them an Islamophobe.
I mean, yeah, I'm sure with the billions of people on the internet, if you say anything, somebody's going to take offense.
True.
Now, I then wonder exactly what percent of the population is really so scared of being called a name by a random internet person. I think you're overestimating that amount of people.
I mean, I don't think so. Look how many racist right-wingers are afraid to be called racist, right? I mean, what do you mean? Like, this is a very common issue.
Well, I would argue that's a tad different because a lot of those people, by your own account, are racist. I assume we're not talking about people.
No, I'm talking about people who are openly what you would describe as Islamophobic, even though I think it's a pretty made-up phrase. It doesn't really matter. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that Islam is a problem, right? And yeah, I don't think there's I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with criticizing that ideology.
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with criticizing it either, but I do think there is something wrong with declaring it in of itself a problem.
I mean, it appears to be in of itself a problem. This is one of the most, this is a very popular religion that promotes death. One of the best things that you could ever achieve in Islam is a suicide bombing or just dying for a cause in general.
Isn't that also true of a lot of religions? The entire concept of the whole
No. So even Christianity isn't that fucking extreme. So in Christianity, you might have people that say this person who died for this cause was a good person, right? Okay, that's one thing. But but in our book, it doesn't say that you're going to get 72 virgins if you blow up a building. There is a huge distinction there. That Christianity doesn't directly promote suicide missions or where you knowingly die for a cause on purpose. That's the goal, is to die for the cause. Most people, that go to war, right? For example, say World War II. Those people didn't volunteer to fight in World War II specifically to die in the effort of fighting the enemy. They just because they were willing to die doesn't mean that was their goal.
Okay.
And that's the difference.
Well, again, first off, I don't accept the notion that Islam is uniquely responsible. If you actually look at what normally happens with these situations, isn't that people are reading the holy books of Islam and becoming terrorists. They're becoming terrorists and then looking for justification. This is something people do with all religions. That's why there's about 800 different sects of Christianity, because people come to it with a preconceived notion and then look for support later.
I don't know about that.
I just want to interject quickly, because I have a theology degree and a master's in counterterror, and I fucking hate both of you. You're both idiots. Thanks. Carry on.
Okay, but here's the problem with that, though. I just showed you a video of them literally doing that. Like, if you think they're not, they were using Islam, to brainwash children into their own goals.
They were using Islam as one aspect in order to support their pre-existing ideologies, though.
Cool. But do you see Christians doing that right now?
Yes.
How many Christians are suicide bombing in mass right now? How many Christians, all right, are doing anything on the scale, the terroristic scale of October 7th, and promoting it using Christianity as justification for it?
Well,
I'm pretty sure it pales in comparison.
The FBI has repeatedly found that Christian right-wing extremist types are the most likely to commit, at the very least in this country.
The United States. I'm talking about internationally.
Well, internationally, I can think of examples throughout history of this occurring.
That's amazing. But statistically, if you were going to be a terrorist internationally, you're probably, and actually, I'm sorry, you are most likely Muslim.
Damn.
Okay. Statistically, there is truth behind that. However, at the end of the day, the fact is there's not a connection there like I think you believe there is, if that makes sense.
The connection is that Islam is a very good religion, a very effective religion, so it appears, for radicalizing groups of people. Now, you could make the argument that any religion could be used for that, but not any religion is number one in that internationally. It's just one.
Gilded.
Now, granted, I want to point out, too, it was the goofiest thing to look into whenever I found out that there's such a thing as Buddhist terrorists, which is the strangest fucking shit, but they pale in comparison to Muslim terrorists.
Gilded, can I just ask you what I think is the $1 million question to this part of the discussion?
Go for it.
Are you under the impression that if the religions were reversed, that instead we had a primarily Muslim West for some reason, and we had, we'll say, a Christian minority in Israel, or hell, we'll even say a Jewish one, and a Muslim majority in what is now Israel, and basically all the religions were topsy-turvy all the fuck around? Do you think that would have any sort of impact on the situation we're looking at right now geopolitically?
I think that if there was a difference, it would be very minuscule.
Okay. Well, in that case, I think we're at least in somewhat agreement.
Yeah, so yeah, like I'm not saying that there aren't other elements at play, such as chronic wars throughout the Middle East, shitty culture, that is not wholly Islamic, there are other things that are going into the equation that isn't Islam. Sure, I do think if Islam, however, if everything was topsy-turvy and Islam was the predominant religion in the West, I don't know. I'm not too sure that things would be exactly the same. There would be differences, but I don't think that Islam would be as insane as it appears to be in the Middle East that we see today.
Okay, so essentially, what do you think causes radicalization, just in general?
I think malicious parties is a pretty big one. Misinformation, disinformation, people in power wanting to maintain power, or people in power wanting to attain it. I think that it's primarily all malicious shit. I think when I know where you're going with it, you're trying to go into like economy and whether or not they have food and shit like that, and I don't think that's the case at all. I think that a lot of that could explain away inner city strife and shit like that, maybe, but I would say that crime dictates crime, as opposed to money or lack of money dictating crime. I think it's kind of silly to look at, like, say, an inner city and then be like, oh, it's just because they're poor. Like, no, I think it's because they're criminals. Criminality dictates criminality.
So you think that a cycle starts and it causes criminality to occur, essentially?
Yeah, I think that it's a how do I put it, a very negative circle or cycle,
Okay. Well, in that situation, I think what we would need to do is we would need to figure out what exactly is causing the criminality in the first place. And if it's other criminality, then at that point, it doesn't exactly... I don't agree with that notion, because I inherently think that people have more restraint than I think you're really giving them credit for.
I think that the restraint people have is not innate to being a person. In fact, 2 points of fact, I think that the only reason why anybody has any restraint in any context is because of how they were raised. It's primarily nurture. I think it is very much within man's nature to be the most devastating force this earth has ever seen.
I don't agree with that in the slightest.
Humans are innately vicious, evil, maniacal creatures. And selfish.
I think that cynical view of humanity has been thoroughly disproven by advancements in anthropology we've made over the past 100 years.
I mean, that might be, you could make the argument that the anthropology may have proven that humans maybe once were one way, but I could also make the argument that years and years and years and years and years of war have tremendously hardened people. You ever heard the phrase chimp out? I mean, it's often used racially, but I mean without the racial context.
I can't say I've ever heard it outside of a racial context, so what do you mean?
Fair enough. So basically, it just means you're reverting to monkey, right? Like you're...
Okay.
It is that button that causes a person to snap, right? And for a lot of people, that button could be, suicidal. That button could be homicidal. It's just that button to where all rhyme and reason goes away, and then all restraint is gone. I honestly think that the main justification for restraint is your peers. So, for example, if I go and I rob a bank, right, a lot of my peers are going to be like, dude, that's kind of douchey. I bank there. Like, you're fucking over my retirement, my 401k, etc., right? I think that has a lot to do with it. But when you live in a country or an environment where that shame does not exist, where the negative things are in fact promoted, and the worst traits of humanity is seen as a boon to your own existence, well, of course you're going to be a terrorist, right? Of course you're going to be a criminal, because you're being rewarded for living an unfettered, unrestrained lifestyle.
Okay. So I have a couple of points. My voice cracked a little. I have a couple of points I want to make. Now, I actually don't disagree with that nearly as much as you might think I would. Now, first off, I will note that I find it kind of humorous that your example is monkeys, given they actually also in the wild tend to cooperate, and outside of very specific circumstances are nowhere near as aggressive as they're made out to be in media.
I didn't say monkeys, I said chimps, but yeah. I want to specify with the example was chimps.
Okay,
because if I said monkey, that's my bad, but I meant chimp, because chimps are batshit nuts. They're insane. They have entire wars and eat each other. It's great. 10 out of 10.
I also, however, would like to add, I think at that point the question becomes, well, what causes those cultures to form? You say crime, but then we got a chicken and egg problem. Did somebody
I'm saying, well, I said power, then people wanting to attain it and maintain it, and then promote maliciously things such as crime, which in of itself is a crime, but I think it starts with malicious actors.
Okay. And going back to what we were talking about, who do you think the malicious actors are?
Well, if we go back to Palestine for 10 seconds, it would be the head of Hamas, right? I mean, the guy that is too much of a coward to even stay in the Gaza Strip and fucking fled to an entirely different fucking country and has been living there for a year while his people are being brutally murdered. That guy.
Why do you think Hamas rose to power in the first place?
It rose to power because a lot of the... okay, so here's a funny thing, right? I have a question for you. Do you think that the Gaza Strip is just like Hamas in power and then the rest are just like Palestinian civilians that are just chilling?
I would assume it's a more complicated dynamic than that, just as it would be in every society.
There is a multitude of tribes because they're still tribal. They haven't gotten past the Middle Ages yet, okay? There's actually, I think 5 or 6 different tribes, including Hamas, which, by the way, is just another tribe. All these tribes actually don't like each other. Fun fact. They have completely different goals, completely different motivations. The only thing they have in common is a common enemy, which is Israel. That's it. So in other words, if it weren't for Israel, Hamas would not be in power, because their entire fucking platform was getting rid of Israel. That was the entire reason Hamas ever got in the first place. And they had more money.
Okay.
And means.
So with that in mind, do you think that continuous bombing is going to make people reconsider their already existing values against Israel, or do you think it's just going to radicalize them further?
I mean, we continually bombed Germany into nothingness, and then we made them rebuild their entire country from scratch, created entire denazification programs, and actually, probably to an extreme, de-radicalized that entire country to the point where they're kind of overcompensating a bit. But it was a successful movement, yeah, with all those bombings.
Okay. Well, the bombings weren't exactly what made Germany hospitable. It was the rebuilding and the money, especially in the Marshall Plan era onward, that caused that.
Yeah, but you got to bomb them first. You got to soften them up a bit. This
Okay.
it's the law of the jungle, you know? Show dominance. That's the first step.
Okay. Well, when do you think the bombings should stop?
I think if all the Palestinian, well, I mean, maybe not Palestinian, but if the Hamas people and the other terroristic tribes in that region decided to give up the war, give up their weapons, and then give up their hostages, I think that would be a good time to stop. Yeah, like they totally fucking conceded. Absolutely.
That is never going to happen.
Yeah,
and
because they're terrorists. Yeah.
And because people in general don't like conceding.
I mean, tell that to France. Just saying. Germany also conceded to the war. I mean, Japan conceded to the war. Like, I don't know what you mean. Like, people concede to war all the time.
Well, in Japan, it nearly caused a civil war to break out.
Oh, that would have been hilarious.
And regarding, in fact, I think, wasn't Hirohito nearly removed from power because he discussed unconditional surrender with the U.S.?
I'm sorry, what?
Wasn't when Hirohito first proposed unconditional surrender to the U.S., wasn't he on the verge of being removed from power?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, like, even in cultures, like, even in situations like that, it's going to be near impossible.
I mean, but they still did, though. Like, I don't care about how complicated it was. It doesn't fucking matter. They still conceded. That's all that matters, really. The fact is that in a war, there is always somebody who wins and always somebody who loses, unless, of course, you're the United States that needlessly drags out war for extended periods of time because boredom. But generally speaking, yeah, like I think they would inevitably concede, or they would just die. They get to pick one.
Well, what do you mean by they? It's not. It isn't the people of Gaza who are directly
the
voting
Arabs.
on this.
I mean, do you think that people are responsible for their votes?
I think that no, but I think there hasn't been an election in Gaza since 2006.
Yeah, cool. But do you think that do you think Hamas is a corrupt government?
Yes, I will concede that.
Okay, so do you think Hamas should surrender?
I think it should, but I think in the meantime, we need to be making a better effort to not go after people who had no involvement with the government of Hamas.
Do you think they're specifically targeting civilians?
To an extent, I don't think maybe targeted. I do think there could be a better planning on Israel's part to make sure civilians aren't harmed.
So 20 million fucking leaflets saying we're going to bomb this spot isn't enough. Multiple phone calls to these specific hospitals and shit that Hamas actually hides their military bases underneath. That's not enough. Like how much more effort do they need? Like, need to go through? Like, that's more effort than I would go through. I'll tell you that much. Like that is unprecedented.
Israel just bombed the place specifically for refugees a couple of months ago.
Yeah, and who was hiding them, or who was using those refugees as a shield?
Do you think
have you listened to the recordings of any of this shit? Like where the Israelis like call these hospitals, and then call these hospitals, and then they say like that they refuse to leave the hospitals because their death serves the cause against them. Like, this is all recorded.
Do you think that maybe the imprecision of bombs means that doing so is not a good idea, especially in a place as small as Gaza? I mean, you are killing people who you do not intend to kill. You mentioned these leaflets. There was a Jon Stewart bit about this about a decade ago now that summed it up perfectly. They're saying that they're supposed to evacuate. Where do they evacuate to? Israel has one border, Egypt has another. Are they supposed to fucking swim for it?
They could do that, or they could just move from that direct location, because they're not bombing the entire Gaza Strip at once, right? Like, so that's kind of a dishonest take on Stewart's part, which is, by the way, woefully unsurprising. But yeah, like if you were being told, hey, evacuate from this particular building, right? And like, where are they supposed to go to? I don't know. Maybe outside of that building.
Well, not only that, but one of the major ways they do. Well, first off, bombs have a way bigger blast range than I think you realize.
Oh no, they have a huge one, but they give them days, not minutes. They're not like, here's some leaflets, we're dropping a bomb in 5 minutes. No, usually it's like 24 to 48 hour notice, like that they have to evacuate from that general area, right? Like, and they don't. And they don't do it because, of, blah, 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 right? Like, you realize that the Palestinian, like the Hamas government, right? And a lot of the other tribes in the Gaza Strip, like, intentionally ensure that those people are there, right? Like, they like, by force, will force refugees or civilians to be in particular areas. In fact, if anything, if you want to criticize the Israelis at all, you criticize them for telling the Hamas government where they should keep the refugees before they bomb, right? Like, honestly, telling the enemy what you're going to do is not a good strategy in any context. But they're doing it because the international community will cry at them if they don't.
And I'm sure the international community has dissuaded them oh so many times.
They have, actually, multiple times. In fact, this war would have been over a long time ago if it weren't for the international community continually complaining. This is what happens every time. Palestine attacks Israel, the Gaza Strip attacks Israel. And then Israel responds. The international community says, oh no, please stop it. Stop responding. And then they stop. And then we have a lull for 4 to 15 years or whatever, right? And then they attack again. And then Israel responds. The international community comes in and says, no, please don't stop it. And then they stop. This is a repeated pattern that's been happening over and over and over again. And
yeah, I'm sure, and I am absolutely certain all those non-binding UN resolutions are really making them quake in their boots.
Yeah, when it comes to funding, absolutely. I'm sure, that the Israelis are, afraid of losing a lot of their funding that they get from the United States, etc. Right? In fact, this is the first time that I can think of where a president of Israel didn't fucking give a shit if they lost funding from the States or not.
Okay, first off, the U.S. has been consistently voting with Israel at the UN.
I know.
In fact, the entire reason nothing happens is because the Security Council would be required, and the U.S. is one of the nations that has veto powers, along with China, Russia, and 2 others I can't remember right now. I think India is one of them. And second off, the U.S. is going to fund them regardless of what the UN thinks.
I think you're underestimating how fickle the rest of the world views the United States. Right.
I think you're underestimating how much the U.S. gives a shit, or overestimating how much the U.S. gives a shit.
Oh, no. You're misunderstanding. I don't think the U.S. particularly cares one way or the other if Israel even exists as a state. Outside of the fact that Israel is a strategic position for the United States in the Middle East. Outside of that, Israel serves no other purpose to the United States militarily or politically. But what I was getting at fundamentally was that the United States is seen by the majority of countries as fickle. We go through a president like every 4 years or every 8 years, right? Also in Israel, like, what's his face? I can't pronounce his fucking name. It has not been the president of Israel this entire time the Israeli state has existed, right? So just because the United States may continue to back them doesn't mean that another president before the current one isn't willing to bend the knee to the whims of other international countries. And that's kind of the point. This guy is the first one that I can think of, the current Israeli prime minister, president, or whatever they call him, that is willing to go against what the international community wants.
Okay, a couple of things. First off, Israel has both a prime minister and a president. By prime minister, do you mean Netanyahu?
Yeah, that guy. I cannot pronounce his name, sorry.
Okay, well, Netanyahu has been an on-off prime minister since the mid-90s. And the entire time, he has infamously ignored international recommendations.
I agree, yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Like, well,
I'm talking about him specifically, yeah. Like, he's the first one that I can think of that has been willing to do that. Like, for example, whenever the 6-Day War happened, they were fighting against 6 countries at once, which, by the way, this is the moment that, in my opinion, that Israel became a state, because they fought and won. Might makes right. So, and still, even then, they took land from the multitude of countries, the 6 countries that attacked them at once. They took land from some of them. And they gave it back. I would have never given that fucking back. But they gave it back due to pressure from the international community.
Okay, well, I have been talking about, at the very least, the current wave of the current what's the word I'm looking for? Uptick in the conflict, you could say. It's not really an eloquent way to put it.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that this guy in particular is one of the few that I know of that has had significant power in Israel that hasn't backed down due to international pressure. He's one of the very few. If you go through in history, like a lot of the other Israeli prime ministers, actually politicians in general, tend to bend the knee quite a lot. I don't think after October 7th that bending the knee is an option. Just like I don't think after 9/11 the United States should have just not responded.
Again, it's not inherently responses that are the issue. It's what's done with that response, but that's a different topic entirely regarding 9/11 foreign policy. However, I am going to say this right now. When I was thinking of Israel ignoring the international community, I was thinking of the man who has been in power since, or whose party at the very least, I cannot talk right now for some reason, who's at the very least been having a massive influence on Israeli politics for decades. Yeah, I don't believe that this man is concerned about international. I don't believe that anyone in mainstream Israeli politics.
That's what I've been saying. Yeah,
I'm about to say, I don't think, with that in mind, it's fair to say that Israel is restrained by the international community, and it has
not at the moment. They're not. I mean,
it's been a pretty long damn moment.
I disagree. Actually, you say that they've been holding back or not holding back for I don't know. They've been pretty constrained. I think one missile being launched into Israel, whether that thing even lands or not, is irrelevant. That is enough to warrant flattening out the entire strip. If you steal my pencil, I should be allowed to burn your home to the ground.
Okay, well, I think that is the definition of cruel and unusual punishment.
No. It's the definition of not really taking seriously this idea of proportions, which I think is a very absurd idea.
Okay, why do you believe that?
Because the concern with proportionality is why we're where we're at now with Israel versus Palestine, right? Yeah, again, Yamini, the amount of missiles being launched a year and Israel just does nothing is staggering. Oh, let me find the actual list. It is insane.
Okay.
Yeah, so here we go. It is nuts. Okay, so in 2023, okay, alone. In 2023. Oh my God, shut up, ad. Sorry, I had a random ad on my thing. October 7th, as we know, to December 31st, there were 6,000 missiles in 2023, right? July 5th, there was 5. May 14th, 1. May 10th, 1,400, right? 1,400 missiles toward Tel Aviv, and there was no response. Like, I don't know, like April 6th, 40, like, and this is just from 1 year, dude. And in fact, from January all the way to October 7th, there is apparently here over 7,000 rockets launched.
Okay. And
in 2024, from January to June 12th, 8,500 plus, just this year alone, towards Israel.
And might I ask, did any of those rockets hit anything?
The majority of them are often taken out by the Iron Dome.
Okay.
Which is why it's there.
Yeah.
And then, dude, May 10th, they're obsessed with May 10th. May 10th of 2021, 4,369 missiles were launched, which I believe was actually covered by most mainstream media at the time.
Yeah, no, I'm near certain I remember that specific conflict in question.
And Israel did go in and
yes, they did.
They didn't go in and bomb the shit out of the entirety of the Gaza Strip like they're doing right now. No.
Well, they were engaging in bombings, though. That's why. Remember the story of the? I think it was an Al Jazeera and Associated Press building were both destroyed in that conflict.
Yeah. Because those were apparently missile. They had munitions depots.
The Israeli government had failed to provide any such evidence of that.
I mean, honestly speaking, I don't think they should. I don't, or I should say, not that they shouldn't. They just shouldn't be required to. I think that whenever somebody launches missiles at your country, that is an act that is not warranted or does not warrant peaceful conversation or peaceful motion. You have committed an act of war for which there can only be a warlike response.
Well, at the end of the day, I do not view your take on how nations should operate as one of decency. I guess would be the right
I mean, I don't know. I think on October 7th, the Arab Palestinians going into Israel, murdering men, women, and children, actually even raping women, kidnapping women and children, burning multiple people in their homes, and playing with the corpses, pretty much warrants the attack that they got.
I would agree that we should be attempting to deal with the people who were behind such an attack. Do not get me wrong.
I mean, yeah, that would be Hamas and the people that back them. I also think that the United States should have sent its full military armada to turn that entire region into a parking lot.
Okay, well, what do you mean by the people who back them, though?
I think that they're basically every single person that participated in that popularity rating going up even 1%. I think basically, in other words, in that moment, back. Stuff consistently, right? So, like, for example, are you against the maybe you might be consistent, I don't know, are you against Ukraine's frequent bombing from, I believe, 2008 to 2014 of the oh my god, what is it called, the eastern region of Ukraine? Are you against their bombing campaign there?
Were innocent civilians killed?
It was only civilians that were killed on purpose.
Okay, then yes.
Like, they were, yeah, okay, cool. But how come whenever Russia came out and said that they were Donbass, that was it. When they said they were defending the Donbass region, which I think is mostly bullshit, but how come whenever they said that, people said that none of that ever happened? But yet the same people that said the Donbass region was never bombed are the same people that are against Israel responding to Palestine, but are more than okay with October 7th.
To sit here and justify the random thoughts of unnamed people.
No, I'm just asking. I'm not asking you to justify the thoughts of unnamed people. What I'm asking is what your thoughts are on that inconsistency.
I think that the person you are describing now is inconsistent and should not discuss geopolitics.
Agreed. So my question is, why are you more concerned with the bombing campaigns in the Gaza Strip than with what happened on October 7th?
What do you mean by concerned exactly? Like, I think that killing any human being unjustly is wrong. If you were to sit here and tell me that there was a way to get rid of the people who were involved in that occurring without killing innocent civilians, I would be totally in support of that.
What makes you so sure they're innocent?
What makes me so sure innocent civilians are innocent?
Yeah, like, just because they're civilians doesn't necessarily mean they're innocent. I mean, they're being hardcore radicalized as we speak. Like, how many? I just showed you the video earlier. There is also multiple tribes within that, as I mentioned before, that are all equally as corrupt as Hamas is.
Okay, Gilded, can I ask a little bit about? Can I see if you're a little consistent?
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so would you support the U.S. government arresting and detaining people who they declare to be neo-Nazis and even bombing areas they think neo-Nazis are present in?
In the United States?
Yes.
No.
Okay, why not?
The reason why is because so the problem with your example is the Gaza Strip isn't part of Israel, right? So if you were saying like Mexico, right? Maybe, but the problem is we're talking about ideas, right? So like a person being a neo-Nazi is just a person that's a fucking racist. Who cares? They're not necessarily a threat to anybody. In fact, they're laughed at by the majority of the country. Nobody fucking gives a shit. And so unless those neo-Nazis in particular personally did something on an individual level, right? You would go after the people directly responsible for what that happened there, right? But whenever it's an entire country that sanctions an attack on your country, that's an entirely different discussion. The October 7th thing wasn't just some magical incident where a bunch of people got a wild hair up their ass and decided to go in there, right? And kill a bunch of people. That wasn't what it was. This was an Iranian-funded attack that was directly planned and orchestrated by the Hamas government. And this was televised in the Gaza Strip and bragged about, and they even said, Hamas said they would do it again. This is an entire government issuing an attack on another country, killing military objects.
Okay.
So no, like that's not that scenario doesn't. For one thing that the Palestinians did on October 7th and attacked Texas and raped women, killed their children, killed other women, and played with corpses on video because ha 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 funny, right? And they did all of that, and they published all these videos everywhere, and they said they would do it again, and the whole thing was supported by the Mexican government. Would I support the United States declaring the entire country of Mexico a direct threat to the United States security, and then bombing the living fuck out of it into oblivion, killing every man, woman, child, dog, and bunny rabbit? Abso-fucking-lutely.
Okay.
Whenever a country orchestrates a strike against another country, they have thus ceased the when me rephrase this. When a country orchestrates and promotes an attack on another country for which the majority of the civilians support, in that moment, that country ceases any ability for any justification for a gentleman's war, especially whenever that attack borders on an act of terrorism. That, by the way, was way worse than 9/11. And I do agree with the rationale, was probably the worst attack on the Jews since the Holocaust. Hello? My internet crashed?
No, you're still here. I'm just, well, yeah, that wasn't the best analogy I could think of, and I apologize.
No, it's fine.
But
I tried to steel man your analogy best I could. So,
well, that's very generous of you. I am going to say that at the end of the day, my main issue. I just saw somebody in the chat right now. Kids, no.
Oh my god, it would make the conversation so much more interesting if you did though. your analogies, both of your analogies suck dick. So
I disagree. I think my analogy was very apt.
Nice. That's nice.
Yeah, I disagree with you. I mean, I could have pulled out the Pop-Tart analogy. You want me to pull out my trademark Pop-Tart analogy? I could do that.
It's not going to be better.
You know what? You know what? This conversation's probably not going anywhere productive anyway. Sure, pull out your Pop-Tart.
I'm kidding. I don't want to do a Pop-Tart analogy. It's gay. I'm way too bored. I'm way too bored to bother with it. Okay, fine. If a black Pop-Tart, I'm kidding, sorry. But anyway, no, the thing is though, is that, I don't think it's fair to, and so you didn't answer my question. I said, why do you seem more concerned with the Arab civilians than the civilians during October 7th?
Well, the answer is, to be blunt, I'm not. The reason they're being focused on in this conversation is primarily because that's just what we're talking about. If you want to talk about how Hamas is to blame for the innocents who are killed in Israeli conflicts, I'll gladly discuss that. I'll also point out that for every 15 people killed in this conflict, 13 are Arab and 2 are Israeli. I'll also point out that that I feel like you're overestimating the amount of the population of Gaza Hamas represents, I will also point out that a lot of the people who have been killed in these bombs are children who weren't even alive when Hamas was elected into power back in 2006.
Yeah, but hold on. So I want to address a couple things. Number one, I'm actually not overestimating how much control Hamas has. Because I said earlier on, I said that it's not just Hamas as a government and the rest are civilians. I said that there's like other tribes for which Hamas is only one. There's other tribes in that country that all have their own agendas, that are all competing actually with Hamas. So for supremacy, it just happens to be the case that they have a unified enemy in Israel. And as far as the children, I mean, look, I'm going to be real with you. That thus is the price of war, right? And the thing is, too, at the end of the day, a lot of those children are heavily radicalized. I mean, and also, to be fair, like most of Palestine is, I read somewhere where like most of Palestine is like under the age of 30 or something like that, because they have like absolutely no fucking proper infrastructure to justify healthcare and shit like that.
Yeah, well,
which is interesting, by the way, because you know that entire Gaza Strip gets, I think, some of, if not the most funding internationally in charity, and they spend all of that charity primarily on weapons and digging tunnels, I guess. On top of that, they've been stealing by all of the food and water and all that shit that was supposed to be given to the Arab civilians. They've been stealing and all of that shit for themselves. The Hamas faction. I mean, like, point is that it's not just like Hamas, though a danger to the country and the civilians that live there. It's also the case that most of the civilians are also a danger onto themselves, because nobody in that country, none of the factions in there, none of them have ever tried to make any effort to build up the infrastructure of their country. None of them have made any effort to do anything to benefit themselves positively. The only thing that Gaza Strip appears to exist for is the maximizing of terroristic acts against Israel. That's all they ever do. That's all it seems to ever be on their agenda. They don't seem to literally do anything else. And the thing that I find most frustrating about this is if this was instead Nazi Germany versus Jews, not a single motherfucker would be debating me on the subject. Not one. Like, everybody would be 100% like, yeah, kill the Germans, right? To the point that, you know, after Hitler, there was actually a German genocide where people genocided Germans on purpose. Nobody talks about that. Few know about it, and even fewer care. But whenever it comes to this subject, all of a sudden, magically, it's brown people versus Israelis. And
okay. A couple of things. First off, no, people would argue with you regarding Germany that they might be a little less invested because the Israel-Palestine conflict's one that's occurring now. However, there have been criticisms of, for example, the bombing of Dresden, I believe that's how it's pronounced, which was done in, I think it was 43 or 44, in leftist circles for years. That's what the novel Slaughterhouse-Five was. Have you ever read that?
No.
Okay.
I actually never even heard of it until just now.
Oh.
I'm sorry, you what?
Slaughterhouse-Five. I never heard of it. Sorry, I don't live in California. All right. We read based books like Tom Sawyer.
Slaughterhouse-Five is a very famous anti-war novel written by a very famous anti-war novelist.
That would be why I didn't read it. Okay.
That being Kurt Vonnegut. I believe is how it's pronounced. And yeah, it is essentially a very detailed criticism of the bombing of Dresden. And regarding the actions revolving around a genocide of Germany after World War II, admittedly, I have not done as much research about this as I probably should have. However, I do know there was at the very least some kind of... Yeah, no, it would be fair to call it. I do know a transfer occurred, and I know that it was an atrocity, and I know that, by the way.
I think the Germans deserved it.
Well, let me continue, because your point was that people wouldn't be arguing with that otherwise.
Okay, fair enough. I'm sorry.
I learned about that because I found it on the website Current Affairs. I assume you don't go to that website, Gilded.
Nope, I just watched a documentary called After Hitler.
Okay. Current Affairs is a socialist website run by Nathan Robinson, who has been fired from, I think it was The Guardian he was fired from a few years ago for being anti-Israel. And he wrote about that transfer and talked about how it was an atrocity. This is not something that we have been suppressing and calling epic. This is something that, no, we do have sustained leftist criticisms of it.
Well, now, I was trying to say, like, in 1945, like nobody would combat me on it. That's what I was getting at. I was primarily complaining about the modern culture of intellectualizing everything into nothingness, right? Like we can't even sit down and then say something that even mildly makes us sound like a bad person, right? So like I would look at the Holocaust, for example, and I would say, you know what? Like I think that the Germans that were genocided after Hitler was gone deserved every bit of it. Absolutely. Fuck them, right? I think it was very deserved. And I don't see why anybody would disagree with that. I don't think any Jew would disagree with me on that, but especially if we went back to 1945, right? I think that whenever it comes to like people like to say, you know, an eye for an eye would make the whole world blind, or whatever cringe gay shit people say. But the truth is, that's just reality. Like that's revenge is just a fancy way to say justice. Natural justice.
I don't accept that notion in the slightest. I'm not even entirely convinced revenge, as it's traditionally thought of, can exist.
I mean, like, do you ever wonder what people are thinking when they're watching the person that murdered their family being put in an electric chair or the lethal injection thingy? Do you ever wonder what those families are thinking about in that moment?
I think it would depend on the families. I know the argument you're trying to pull.
I think a lot of them are fundamentally feeling some amount of relief. And if nothing else, the state could be argued to be a kind of middle of the road arbiter to facilitate vengeance for the parties affected.
There has been, okay, so in the situation you're talking about, that's just never been proven. It has been proven that putting them away from civilization and does create closure. However, the idea that killing them causes a sense of justice has just never once been found to be a consistent thing among humans.
I mean, to be fair though, I don't really think that's something that would be easily studied though, right? It'd be really difficult without a mind reading device. And also the truth is, a lot of people wouldn't admit to something like that. Because there's a fundamental issue with people not speaking their mind out of fear of being seen as a bad person. Which I'm not saying that as like a bad thing. That just happens to be like is what it is. Like that's just how people are. Like there's nothing you can do about
I'm just going to say this. At some point, first off, what you're saying is you won't believe any empirical evidence because
No. That's not what I'm saying.
Okay, what are you saying?
I'm just saying that it would be a hard thing to study. I didn't say I wouldn't believe it, right? Like,
Okay.
I was commenting on the difficulty level.
Okay, well, I don't believe there's this stigma against saying you like seeing a killer die.
No, not a killer. Like the person that like, if, okay, for example, if somebody murdered my child and then they were put on death row, and then eventually I was able to watch as that person was put to death, I think I would feel quite a lot of relief.
Okay.
I'm meaning it that way. I'm not saying like some fucking rando just hops in to watch somebody be put to death. That's not what I meant.
Okay, well, I'm going to add that you said it was hard to study because you thought that people were worried about being labeled bad people if they say.
Yeah, I think that would just be a general issue. Yeah.
Given how comfortable people are wishing for capital punishment against people who didn't personally harm their family, I don't see that as a thing. I just don't think.
I'm not talking about the capital punishment for people that didn't harm their family.
Well, no, but wouldn't there be less of a stigma against wishing for capital punishment against people who did harm your family, just logically?
I don't know. I'm pretty sure a lot of people might. I mean, maybe. But also at the same time, like, I could imagine like somebody being afraid of just come out and saying, "I enjoyed watching that fucker die." Like, I think that the internet has kind of just ruined that level of openness.
I in no way agree with that.
I mean, like earlier on in the conversation, we both agreed that the internet is a divisive hellhole, right? So I don't know. Like, I think that actually, I'm gonna put it another way. I'm gonna ask you a question.
Okay.
If I made a television show that promoted capital punishment, like where the whole show is just you watching people being put to death, right? And it was like, and there was like some like weird game show element to it or something. I don't know. How popular do you think that show would be?
I think that there definitely would be a lot of morbid curiosity at the very least early on. I don't know where it would be in the ratings, but I imagine it would get.
How popular do you think it was to go to the hanging back in the day?
Incredibly. It was a very common hangout.
Exactly. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, I think a lot of people would secretly enjoy that shit, but I don't know if they would necessarily go online and just be like, "Yeah, dude, I love it so much. I tug to this shit, man." Like, I don't think anybody would be that open about it.
Okay, well, in that case, I think maybe, but the main thing I'm thinking of is I've seen so many situations where, like, you go on Twitter or you go on Reddit or you go on any social media website, YouTube's another one, and it's a story about some really bad killer, and literally the entire comment section is just, wow, this guy deserves to die. Like, that's
true. But on the other side of the coin, there was a lot of people on October 7th all over Twitter that said that Israel got what they deserved. In response to, videos of dead kids and, raped women, right? Like, I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's not that cut and dry. The internet's pretty divisive. I think, like, there are other, like even with George Floyd, like, everybody, like, how big was that debate, right? Like people just watched a guy like just fucking die right in front of them, and we debated the merit of his death for like 2 years. Or we have the case with the Kenosha kid, right, where somehow he shot 3 black people, like, which he didn't, and we debated over what was the clearest, most open and shut case of self-defense I've ever seen in my life, and people were accusing him of being a murderer. To date, make the claim that the government was in a conspiracy colluding with Rittenhouse's innocence.
I've never heard that one before. I have
West Vosh that I just quoted there, by the way.
Okay, well, I have not watched Vosh in quite a while, so.
Yeah, Vosh said that he was made innocent because Republicans stick together, and it was all bullshit, and it was all for show. That it was that he was innocent before he even walked in the door. They already decided. But he was insane.
I mean, that's a very different discussion.
Well, no, I'm not saying like that's representative of anything other than the divisive nature of the internet. And people's fear of that divisive nature biting them in the ass.
Well, I kind of want to go back because you mentioned you countered my example with the October 7th discussion. However, in that case, I could have found far more people who are treating it as a tragedy. How many people do you think you tend to see under what I mentioned before, the articles about the really bad guys? How many people are just out there commenting, this guy doesn't deserve capital punishment? I don't see that. I never see that. Even among
guys.
Well, I can't think of any example.
I'll give you an example, actually, of one. There was a woman who, I can't remember. I think she was, she was part of at least somewhat a part of the Black Lives Matter movement, in that she was promoted by them. And what happened was that she fucking brutally murdered her husband, and was promoted by almost the entirety of the left and Black Lives Matter as a inspirational black speaker. Because she killed a white man.
Can I have the name of this person?
Hold on. Fuck. I cannot remember her name. Hold on. Look.
I'm sorry, I stopped paying attention like 30 minutes ago. What are we doing?
I was looking up something that I cannot find because I cannot remember this woman's name. So there was.
Fine. I can listen. I can feel everyone's relief at the silence briefly.
But no, I'm just saying, there was even a cop murder, where this guy fucking went up to a cop and then fucking shot him at point blank range, a complete random. And a lot of BLM and people that, actually, you know what? Fuck all of that. None of that matters. The BLM riots were one of the most heavily promoted things by the entirety of the left and BLM, including all the theft going on in major fucking businesses, right? Come on. This is something.
Does this have to do with Israel, Palestine? Get back on topic.
We began discussing how people respond to seeing others die, and if they'd be comfortable admitting that they enjoyed watching somebody who killed their family members die, and then we ended up onto here.
Yeah, basically
Did
the
you just
entire
say that sentence and then maintain like that this is a sane point to be lingering on?
Yeah, the entire point that I'm trying to get across here is that fundamentally speaking, I think that Israel is completely justified in their response, and that's the whole point. And I think especially after seeing one of the most heavily broadcasted attacks on any nation ever. I mean, people had to watch that shit, dude. And then to say, like, oh, you know, I think people are above that. It's like, no, they're not above that. Like, people don't naturally have restraint when seeing that shit. That immediately makes people go fucking nuts, and justifiably so. And
So,
I think it's
wait,
completely
So
justified.
you're arguing that because people, during the BLM riots, because people, enjoyed looting stores and watching a cop be murdered, that's a sign that people enjoyed watching people they don't like being murdered?
You asked me to bring it back, and now you're okay.
I'm trying to see your point.
No. The only reason I brought up BLM is because he was trying to argue that people have like some natural restraint, and that people like find things like naturally one way or the other, and I was trying to argue that things are much more divisive than that. That what BLM promotes often is debated by opposite sides of the political spectrum. That there's almost no issue where everybody universally just agrees. That's it.
Well, no, I mean, honestly, neither of us are entirely sure how we got here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm giving like a very general gist, but like I was trying to bring it back to the point that that fundamentally with Israel Palestine shit, like I don't think it's fair to be like, oh, you know, because of October 7th, they shouldn't be reacting with bombs. They should instead have a peace treaty. Whenever they're getting bombed and attacked like almost every fucking day of every year, you know, like I think that's insane.
I never said that like we should just try hugging Hamas out of radicalization. And if I ever said such a thing, then you can please let me know where, because that's not what I meant.
It's not just Hamas that's radical. It's the entirety of the population of the Gaza Strip that's radical. Like, dude, like, how do I put this? Do you know how many Jews live in the Gaza Strip?
I don't know off the top of my head. I'll concede it's probably very few.
It's none. There is no Jews that reside in the Gaza Strip. They don't live there. Like, do you know how many Jews live in the majority of Middle Eastern countries?
Well, in a lot of them, like we discussed earlier, there is an anti-Semitic issue in much of the Middle East.
Yes. So the answer is very little to none, right? Like, it's very few. And the thing is that the places where they're residing the most is oftentimes the most like westernized Muslim country.
Just out of interest, because I kind of want to. I look, a lot of this is just back and forth and stuff, but I'm kind of interested in everyone's response to this because it is an interesting one. Are you aware that, like, so I assume you've heard the narrative, Ephraim, that like Jews in Israel could like come back to America, right?
I haven't heard anybody say that specifically. No.
Okay, I mean that's a pretty popular extreme leftist talking point.
I haven't heard that.
Yeah, sure. Where do you think the majority of Jews within Israel are actually from? Like originally, if they weren't like, I don't mean like native to the region like 1,000 years ago. I mean, where do you think the majority of that population is built from?
Well, they're European and United States refugees, aren't they?
No, they're Middle Eastern. So there is a large portion that were refugees during that period. But when Israel started to be established, the reason there are so few Jews in other Middle Eastern countries, and I mean, I just went to just check the stats because like so there's one country where there's like 10 Egypt has something like 100, I believe, in the entire country. It's because they said you can all go to Israel now. So they like the narrative of kind of like of ethnic cleansing is what essentially occurred to Middle Eastern Jews. That's why they're in Israel. So there is actually there's not like a place they can go back to. That's where they were sent. So like and this isn't me like intervening. I just think it's an interesting point that like I just wonder your response to that.
Okay, well, no, that does, again, there is an anti-Semitic problem in a lot of Middle Eastern nations. I don't think that justifies any specific action of Israel's, but I do think that is something that does need to be discussed, and if you would like to have a discussion about that, I would gladly do so.
It's not so much the discussion, it's just sort of like, it's painting a picture of like retaliation, right? Because what happens a lot in like sort of the West when we have this kind of conversation is the Middle East, and this is true on the other side with Palestine or like Egypt or like Saudi Arabia. We talk about it like it's the West, and it's not. So like we sort of impose our values onto these countries. Like, okay, so what happens to you if you're gay in Israel?
Usually not. Well, yeah, they don't kill you. Very few Muslim nations do kill you in general. I think.
Okay, but what happens to you if you're gay in Palestine?
You'll be harassed.
You'll be imprisoned.
Yeah.
There's actually
you may be executed.
There's actually a video of them throwing a gay man off of a balcony.
So like and that's because there's like a lot of cultural ties and everything else. This is not to paint a narrative. It's just that we don't discuss these countries like they're actual countries or in their real states. It's kind of like the frustrating things when like Europeans talk about America like it's Europe, or Americans talk about Europe like it's America. It just doesn't work very well. I know I'm sort of interrupting kind of your debate, but like it's more. I just think it's like does that give you pause for like the situation that Israel and Palestine are in, right? Because it's not like Palestinians can just flee either, because they can't go to any of the neighboring countries.
They can go swim.
I will say, sorry to interrupt. I will say that I've heard something similar. I've heard it a little differently. It's more of like this is more of like a hush hush sort of thing. It's like you can be gay, but it's like a hint. Do not you don't do this in the open.
Where?
Oh.
Yeah.
In Israel, it's like you can be gay.
Oh God, yeah, it's fine.
That's actually just not true. There was just a video posted the other day of Israel having gay flags in one of their major cities up for everybody to see. Like, I just saw this yesterday. Like they are very much.
But we're talking about major like areas and tourist integrations in a country that's like.
I mean, sure, but if it was as hush hush as you say, the last thing I would imagine is a gay flag up for everybody to see, right?
Okay, so, sorry. I sure, but I think it's more meant to be like if you're from there, it's one of those like you don't talk about it, you don't say it, and by the light of the moon, you can be that. But otherwise, you do what's asked of you. You uphold those family values. You marry who you're supposed to marry, and that's it.
I don't know. I don't think that's true. Like, the reason I don't think that's true is because I think that's back to like they are less gay than us, and therefore this. Like, I don't know. That's what it sounds like to me. Like
I mean, that's,
putting up a gay flag in public is like a huge deal. It's not like nothing.
Well, wait. Where was it? Was it in their capital? Was it in?
I'll be right back.
I'm not sure. Hold on, I can find out right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I think because again, like it's one of those where when I heard about this debate, I was reminded of another one that happened on a politics panel where there's a guy named Omar, And Omar's response to anyone fleeing Palestine, any civilian that was fleeing, should be shot in the back. That was his response.
Yeah, that guy does.
Yeah, but he's like heavily pro Palestine. He just thinks that if you leave, you're a fucking traitor. So, like, it's not cut and dried, and that's like, it's not like a massive popular opinion in the West, but within religious extremists, it's not an unheard opinion. He didn't feel like that would be a shocking thing to say, right?
Okay. Okay. Well, yeah. No, that I have talked about how this population is radicalized before, and I will admit that is definitely worth discussing.
Sure. Gilded, very quickly, because I've done this to Ephraim now. Like, what do you feel about the fact that, like, the Palestinian population? Because I know we're talking about tribes and radicalization and everything else, but they can't leave, right? Like, Egypt made it pretty clear that if they try and cross into Egyptian territory to flee, they'd be shot.
I mean, and for good reason. Yeah. I mean, this is like one of the big issues with the Gaza Strip Arabs, is they're primarily seen as rabid dogs in the Muslim world because Jordan once allowed them in, and then they immediately tried to started a coup in Jordan. So this fundamentally is kind of part of the problem. If they could go somewhere, but that's on them, and I have no pity for them. They did it to themselves. They played themselves. If they want to go somewhere, they can go jump into the sea.
So I'm going to have to go here pretty shortly. If you guys want to keep arguing, you are more than welcome to, but I'm going to have to leave momentarily.
Okay.
So before I leave, shut up. Shut up. You guys are the one having this boring ass argument nobody cares about. I'm going to say this super quickly about the call we're doing on the 7th for, is Fox, are you in here? Really quick.
Yes, Fox is in here. He's...
Okay. And is Iris in here? I can't see him. Them?
Him.
Whatever.
No, you
Okay.
said it right the first time. Let me see. No,
Okay.
Iris.
Okay, whatever. That's fine. Then Fox can relay this information, and whoever else is in here can relay this information. If you guys are going to have this conversation about age regression, I really do expect citations for this. I probably should have had this expectation for this call too. So for this next call, make sure you have your citations before you just start espousing whatever bullshit you're going to espouse. So.
I mean, I've done that for a lot of it, like right now.
Okay, well, you didn't drop the links anywhere, so nobody could put it where.
Oh, you wanted links. Oh, my bad.
Yes,
Fair
that's
enough.
what I'm referring to.
Okay,
So.
gotcha.
Okay.
But for the record, I don't remember what city. I don't know what city this is in, but this was yeah.
Okay. Well, have fun.
Can't see.
See ya.
Pride flags all the way up and down the street here.
Yeah, and so that was in one of their cities. I'm gonna guess it was probably like Tel Aviv or some shit.
Okay. Okay.
However, the foreign ministry also posted flags in front of the foreign ministry, which kind of ties into what Beckett was talking about. But on top of that, apparently some Israeli soldiers were putting the gay flag on their military uniforms.
Yeah, that one I did see, which...
It's all a psyop. It's all a psyop. It's all a psyop. It's like the hot American, like, it's hot military American chicks. And like, join the army. We have like e-girls here, and actually just get shot.
True.
Sorry, I'm bored now, so I'm just going to start interjecting into debate. Like, you can thank me later.
Well, I mean, but why are we bringing up? Why were we talking about the gays in Israel? Like, is it just because like in Palestine you get fucking killed? Was that it?
Yeah, it's basically my point is the fact that like whenever people discuss this conflict or like anything to do with the Middle East, because like. So you guys have been going back and forth for a couple of things. Fuck it. Actually, fuck it. I'm going to do this. Right. Gilded. Your point about Christianity not having stuff in their book about virgins or sacrifice. Firstly, Neither does Islam. That stuff is like additional from radical preachers. Secondly, Christianity has a massive thing about self-sacrifice, which
that's not what I said.
No. What you said was there is nothing like within like Christianity that is currently a driving force for things like suicide bombings or like sacrifice.
What my exact words. Hold on, I want to make this very clear. What I said is that a willingness to die in a conflict differs greatly from that being the goal, right?
Okay, so like that is actually a Christian goal.
Well, hold on. I have never seen that anywhere where Christians are like, I'm going to go suicide bomb a building for God.
Okay, but that's because Christianity, like, okay, from that perspective, that's what's a good way to put this because I'm tired. So from that perspective, I can see that, but that's kind of like it's the time that we're in. If you've got like, let's say we go back to like the early Roman, like the early Christian period, around the fall of Rome, where
martyrdom
start becoming more aggressive. Christianity has a massive martyrdom complex.
Yes.
Like the updates to the just war theory allowed them to join the military, and they absolutely spread that violently and for religious reasons. I mean, even within like Christendom itself.
Yeah, they did.
Pope Innocent III was like, you can have a crusade, I'll sanction it, but you're going to go and burn down a few French cities for me because they've got like radical Christian cults in them.
Yeah. But I mean, there is a practice in Christianity where you venerate people who are martyrs. Like that is absolutely a thing, right? But that's significantly different from I want you to willingly and as a goal to become a martyr and get yourself fucking whacked on purpose. And even if that was something that was mildly promoted, maybe, possibly, which I've never seen in the medieval period, that's not something that's explicitly in the Bible. Whereas in the Islam Bible, that is the Quran, that is something that is explicitly promoted. That is like what I'm getting at. So you can blame the Christian dogma.
No, okay, I could be wrong. It's been a while since I read the Quran. Where in the Quran is that promoted?
I can't remember where, but it was the idea that if you die in the service of Allah, 72 virgins go to heaven, blah, 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 blah.
But like dying in the service of God, like you can make the same arguments within martyrdom. Like dying through crucifixion, like huge amounts of sacrifice. Like the later kind of writings within like Roman, like letters, for example, are all about like sacrifice to God over yourself and your own pleasures, like, and that's how you get rewarded because
that could be could be attributed to the dogma, but it wouldn't be attributed to the Bible itself.
Okay, but if you're like going to do the like pure scriptural reading thing of Christianity, generally speaking, firstly, no one does that. Like even scripturalists don't do that. If you believe in allegorical truth, if you believe the Bible has messages within it, you're not really just reading scripture. If you are a pure fucking scripturalist, you have to believe that the universe, like the world, is 6,000 years old, and
cool. All right, cool.
Like, Samson got power from his head. Like you'd have to believe those verbatim. There are people that is very outside the norm.
Do you not see the difference between promoting a martyrdom, right, and venerating martyrdom versus like telling people they need to martyr themselves? Like, do you not see the difference? There's a huge distinction.
No, not really.
That is a huge. If the Pope went around telling everybody to go strap bombs to their chests and run into buildings, that is distinctly different from the Pope saying, wow, you guys did that? Like, I mean, you went totally extra, bro. Good job. Like, these are two different things.
Hold on. Okay, firstly, to people who are like, this is Gilded versus everyone, we're actually past the 2-hour mark. So that's why I'm fighting with Gilded, because otherwise we're just, like, at the end. But within Christianity itself, the Pope has like forced people into like conflicts. It's pushed the Pope's pushed people to like go to different wars and like burn down cities, like justified executions. This was used on the Templar when kings have needed it. Like those levels of sacrifice are truly that. I don't think it's unique to Islam.
Okay, but that's way different. Like, I don't understand why a willingness to self-sacrifice differs greatly from that being the goal. Like, for example, do you think everybody who volunteered after Pearl Harbor to go to war, do you think all those volunteers did so with the intended purpose of self-sacrifice? Or was it a willingness to self-sacrifice?
Okay, wasn't your point that this is almost unique to Islam as a problem?
My point was that was unique to Islam was that all of these people like will kill themselves as the goal for the in doing so killing other people as per the goal. Like, the goal is to die in that effort, like on purpose. When not just if I die, I die. It's in the service of God. Either way, let God decide. No, it's I am absolutely going to die right now on purpose and take as many people with me.
Okay,
These are two distinctly different things.
Do you think that's an issue with Islam, or to do with like people generally within kind of cults, like certain types of leadership cults?
I think currently that is a uniquely Islam issue. That if you went and you try to looked up a study on which religions are most responsible for that right now, that would be Islam. And in fact, I don't think there's outside of cults that's not a very common issue.
But you'd accept that is essentially what Japan's battle tactics were.
The Japanese absolutely
largely driven by Buddhism.
Yes,
like
I literally mentioned Buddhism doing similar shit like earlier on when I brought this up.
Yeah, it's because again, religion's like a powerful driver, but it's also an excuse. I think this is what I'm trying to get at. It's like you can draw the distinctions and say, well, Christianity doesn't have this within the book, but this is the problem with scriptural arguments. No one really makes them.
Well, it doesn't just not have it in the book, right? We've also evolved past the Middle Ages, we have Christianity, right? And then in the second century, right, or first century, one of the two. It depends on how pedantic you want to be. And then you have fucking Muslims in the 6th century, 7th century that came about, right? We can look and see the two different nations, the East and the West, right? That grew from these religions. Which one maximized everything that Ephraim is promoting here? I would argue that even Christianity, or these Christian nations at their worst, are significantly less bad than the modern Muslim nations, the majority of them.
Okay, why? Like what specifically makes Middle Eastern nations? Because that's what we're talking about. I suppose you could bring in like majority Muslim African nations.
Right. Like what makes them the worst is look how much they give a shit about their people, right? They promote they're against all the rights that all the West holds dear. In fact, actually, they hate the West. They would want to kill Ephraim just because Ephraim exists and because of where he was born and because he's white and for no other significant reason, right? These people kill each other on the daily. They promote sacrificing their lives in the efforts of murdering as many innocents as possible because God. And this is a massive issue in the Middle East and in even Africa. Africa, like currently right now, is going through constant war. There's actually a silent crusade, and I say silent, I mean nobody's talking about it, going on in Africa. That's been going on in Africa. There's like a Muslim versus Christian war that's been going on in Africa forever. Nobody wants to talk about it, all these not all of them, but the majority of these Muslim countries, minus the ones that have westernized, are like shithole countries. They're complete garbage. They don't take care of their own shit, and they promote crime. They promote criminality. Like nothing, like everything about these countries is the antithesis of everything that Ephraim in this debate has promoted, and some things that I would promote. You know, like any form of libertarian idea, like, you know, gays should be allowed to be gay, right? Like that's something that would get you killed in the majority of these fucking countries. So and in prison for a long time if you're lucky.
I think
the point is, it's like, no, the culture of these countries, like it is very evident that at the very minimum, Islam did no favors in the development of these countries.
I think a lot of what you're saying boils down to one huge factor that separates the Middle East from a lot of other first world countries, and that's essentially the separation of church and state, where like their church and their religion basically runs their like government.
Yeah, which is another point, is that like of why they never got out of the Middle Ages, and they promote things that we're against.
So again, like you gotta remember, like like the Middle East is the cradle of civilization for like a great many advancements.
Yeah,
now,
I
like,
mean, yeah,
you can like actually okay. So the like largest, like, or at least the current strongest anthropological argument is actually environmental. Like, this isn't to do with religion or culture or anything else. It's to do with environment. The Middle East used to be highly habitable, with like enough water, shade, and everything else to support large populations. That changed over time, and that has led to smaller communities. And we've studied this as well. Like, the more isolated,
yes, that's why Arizona is at war. Yeah.
Well, I mean, but Arizona's like supported by massive like infrastructure from other places.
Correct, which is something the Middle East lacks because they have no infrastructure.
Okay, but the reason they have no infrastructure, okay, like you're like looking at like a single instant now. What I'm talking is about like civilization collapse over a prolonged period because of environmental factors. Like, you can debate me on this, but I'm just telling you what the current anthropological opinion is. This isn't my opinion. This is like the current theory of what happened to the Middle East and why the cultural.
Nobody in academia is ever willing to blame culture for the failings of a culture. Anybody ever notice that? Mm-hmm. Like, in fact, all these answers seem to be derived as a means to spite the obvious.
Okay, well, if you want to go for that, then the reason, like the strongest reason, for like Middle Eastern, like kind of like ending up as it has, because like actually where the Middle East now is not where like is now, seems to be a result of Western intervention more than anything else.
I mean, okay, so when it comes to Israel,
not just Israel.
I know. I'm just saying, like, when it comes to Israel, Palestine, especially, sure. I mean, you could definitely blame Britain for like a lot of its part.
Blaming Britain, and a lot of it's European.
Yeah. So like I don't disagree that had an impact, but I would not make the argument that is in any way, shape, or form a major impact. And the reason why is because if you look at Muslim history, it actually, like Christian history, is nothing but warfare all the way to the medieval period. It's just war. Like the first Crusades were started due directly to Islamic expansionism, right? I mean, like, and the problem with these countries is they never got past that. They're still living in this like pseudo Middle Ages mindset, maintaining many of the cultural things that were promoted then. Okay, like this is the fundamental issue: is they won't.
Okay, well let's take Iran. Which country in the Middle East does Iran dislike the most other than Israel?
Probably America.
Saudi Arabia.
Oh, you said the Middle East. I'm sorry. Yeah, Saudi Arabia. Yeah.
Saudi Arabia, because it's a monarchy. Iran is like highly anti-monarchy. It's that whole thing, right?
I mean, sure.
So you've got like a state that's essentially like pure republic. Now, what was Iran like before American intervention? Like, they're going back to like let's say the 80s. What was their opinion on things like headscarves and like fundamentalist kind of dress codes?
They were very. I mean, is in Iran still like that? Like they're focused on like they have the what is that called, Sharia law?
Yeah, they really care. What were they like in the 80s?
I have no idea.
They didn't care.
I mean,
Okay.
I don't
like,
know
and
about
it's largely,
that.
but this is the point. Like you're like pushing for the Middle East really backwards. Well, that's like it's like again like.
But
Israel,
in the
Palestine's
80s, weren't
really
they? But in the 80s, weren't they at war with Iraq?
Yeah,
Yes.
but at the same time, it's like the push towards religious extremism is driven by that conflict and insualization because they're like the Middle East is in a constant state of turmoil, largely because of outside influences. Like you could argue that there'd be like still conflict, and of course there fucking would be. But like when you look at like let's say Iraq is a state that basically the British made up to like make sure oil supplies were continuing. Like we did really similar things to the Middle East that we did to Africa. We took loads of disparate regions, often with like tribes of people who've had blood feuds against each other, or with different religions, because Iraq has like a large Christian population, or had, and then just sort of went, "You're a country now, have fun." Because we basically just invented the concept of like, we basically drew the borders.
Okay, so
and they made
does
no
this
fucking
somehow absolve them of their own individual decisions?
No, it doesn't. It's not about absolution. It's about the fact that, like, well, you're like pinning things on Islam. My point is the fact that Islam is like a convenient excuse, but you could replace it with almost any religion, and in those circumstances, the outcomes would be broadly speaking the same.
I mean,
I with Christianity, which has been my point with you. Like, it doesn't matter what's in the book; it matters what's like.
Well, I said that earlier. Ephraim asked me that earlier. I said if everything was topsy-turvy, where Islam was in the West and Christianity was in the Middle East, that the distinctions would probably not be that wide. It'd probably be minuscule differences.
Sure. So, like, but we can say like. The issue is Islam, but like the issue is interaction, with Islam, right?
I think that the only difference that would be in any way significant is I think that although Christianity might be similar, if you replace the Middle East's main religion with Christianity, although there may be similarity there, I honestly still do not believe it would be just as bad as Islam, because Islam. Like the religion itself is distinctly negative compared to Christianity.
Okay, well, what about other religions? Like, let's leave Christianity aside.
Or actually, let me put it this way. Maybe it's not the religion itself, but rather the dogmatic views around Islam. Perhaps might be the core.
Sure, I think this is just like broadly what I want to push back on, because like again, it's like the conversation around terrorism. Like you were like, I'm really surprised to find out there are Buddhist terrorists. I'm like. Yeah, like in I believe it's Sri Lanka, one of the head priests refers to himself as the Osama bin Laden of Buddhism, quite proudly. He's like really into it, and they'll like conduct terrorist attacks. At the same time, like Hindu nationalism is massively on the rise, and they'll fucking lynch people.
But here's my question. Like, this is the part that confuses me, though. All right, about this whole thing. Canada is a very rural country.
Mm-hmm.
They're all like predominantly Christian, I believe, but they're not killing each other, and most of the country is inhospitable, right? So like they're not out killing each other. In fact, quite the opposite, right? So like it doesn't really explain much for the Middle East, right? Like so like there's a lot of countries like that where
so the reason that the predominant reason that Islam looks the way it does now, at least from a fundamentalist point of view, is the occupation of Afghanistan by the Russians. During that period, it created a lot of refugee camps, and like lots of nations sent aid to these refugee camps. I believe it's Saudi Arabia and Pakistan basically established schools. And what they specifically did was go, we're going to educate you in kind of a very particular type of fundamentalist Islam that predominantly like grew in Pakistan. At the same time, there is a concept. You know how like the concept of pilgrimage exists, obviously. Mm-hmm. So it was seen as quite a good thing. This is where a lot of people like Osama bin Laden or like other terrorists who come from actually quite good families. It's why they ended up in Afghanistan fighting for the Mujahideen, because it was, hey, you should go and do like a tour of duty as a good Muslim. And over time, that became more and more radicalized and like exported out. And like there's a couple, but the main one people know is Wahhabi.
I want to take a moment to respond to the chat real quick. The reason I haven't muted is because technically speaking, I'm one of the two parties here, so it feels kind of bad taste.
So also, I want to respond to the stream chat real quick, which I'm sure you'll agree with. People are saying that there's no Christian variant of Sharia law. I actually disagree with that. I mean, there's it may not have been as extreme to the point of like cutting off genitalia, but there was a lot of like heavy suppression of sexuality, heavy suppression of certain subject matter in movies, television. I mean, like if you grew up in the early thousands, you'd be very, very consciously aware of how much Christianity almost directly dictated a lot of the moral views and what's represented in television and other media.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, Britain had blasphemy laws into the 1900s.
Yeah, it wasn't even until I think it was a little later than that. Didn't they only officially repeal them in like 2007?
Okay, so they kind of got like mixed in with like hate crime laws. Technically, they weren't. Britain doesn't really repeal things. It writes laws on top of stuff. It's really weird, but it's like laws overlap, and then you go with the latest act.
But no, like the thing is what you're saying about like imperialism or white people basically negatively impacting the Middle East. It just sounds like another reason to blame white people, right? Like I think it may have had an impact of some kind. But I honestly think if the Middle East was completely left alone, the result would be the same.
In some ways, this is more opinion than anything else, but I think the Middle East suffers a lot with empire decline. It's kind of like in this fairly recent kind of human history speaking.
You're referring to the Ottoman Empire going away, and I mean maybe.
Yeah, that has massive impacts. And yeah, I mean, the environmental ones is simply the fact that like you can't sustain large populations on like the agriculture. People won't move off the land. And the other thing is people become more attached to the land. If you go to somebody, hey, you need to move because there's a famine, and take the Dust Bowl in like America in the early 1900s, they go, oh shit, we need to move, right? Or when you like introduce industrialization, it's like, well, we need to move to the city because there are jobs there. But if someone comes to you and goes, hey, you're going to move off this land, even if that land's not particularly valuable from an agricultural sense or not good for industry, that's something that like instinctively as humans we go, oh, actually, no, fuck you, I'm not going to move. And that's like created almost a warrior culture of this is, it's not much, but it's ours.
Which I'd say the same thing about a pencil,
Well, I mean, this is what happened with like Ireland as well, you know, like people who've left over time. It's like, well, they left. Why did they leave? And this, you know, there's like a mixed pride and annoyance at sort of like Irish Americans for those reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't think we completely disagree. I just think that, you know, if the Middle East had been Christian the entire time, that I think fundamentally there would be some similarities. Actually, a lot of probably pretty bad similarities given everything went down the same. But I also think that it would probably be a little bit better too. So I don't know. Like I think that there is a distinct difference between the religions, or at least the dogmatic views within the religions. But I guess I could agree that it may not be enough to matter. But at the same time, I don't think other nations coming in and parceling off pieces of the old Ottoman Empire, like, had really like the biggest influence. I think blaming occupiers, white occupiers, is just kind of a cringe talking point that's been said ad nauseum.
Well, I don't think it's just, okay. I think if your land's being cut up in the same way like Africa was cut up and sold off to essentially enrich other countries, I can understand the feelings of fucking rage towards that. I don't think that's a wild take.
No, it's not. I could see like how like you could create a warrior culture. I could see how that warrior culture could utilize extremely absurd dogmatic views of their own local religion to justify said warrior culture. But I would also say that it's not just an excuse. I think it also is a self-inflating. I think that it's like a cycle, a vicious cycle. There's actually a really good word for this that I can't remember, but yeah, I think that religion and war go hand in hand, and it's hard to have one without the other in a lot of these cases, especially in the Middle East.
I mean, the Soviets just created their own religion. People make this, like, right? Like, you've got like plenty of atheists who scream on Reddit about how like the world better if we just killed all religious people.
Well, I mean, yeah, but atheists within of themselves, though, like kind of fall into the same trap, right? Like, they try to claim that religion bad while huddling in little fucking hug boxes circled around a cult personality, right? Like, how many of these Reddit atheists like fucking worship people like Sam Harris like a god, you know? Or
yeah, sure.
Or humanism. Or secular humanism, which I honestly think should just be straight up considered a religion.
God, it's so cringe though.
It is.
So I think in conclusion, did we accomplish anything?
We accomplished exactly the same amount of accomplishment that's been done in the Middle East since ever.
Yeah, you managed to annoy me enough that I interrupted that at the end of your debate to actually just fight with Gilded over stuff. So that's an achievement.
Well, the whole thing was just to annoy you. That was the whole point.
Yeah, this was incredibly painful. Thank you.
I hope we can do this again sometime.
Well, and just so you know, you're gonna love this, okay? My actual take is not just like fucking leveling the Gaza Strip. Like, it's not even. I just did that to piss people off. That's fine.
Well, you know what?
My entire take is actually just I kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier on, which would be similar to what we did to Nazi Germany, which is a de-radicalization of the area, and give them the Gaza Strip, try to promote positive, I guess you would say, Western values to try and promote a better country and shit like that. So like all the cringe gay shit.
I would actually say that this is one of the first ones where like chat didn't win. I think Ephraim actually won this.
Yay!
Really? Fuck you.
Yeah, I think
he's just being a contrarian. He's like, well, you pissed me off. Now I'm gonna piss you off.
What do you mean he's literally just being a contrarian? Gilded, you came in here with the take of I'm just going to level the Gaza Strip, and the thing you just admitted, you don't even fucking believe.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was obvious. Like, okay, yeah. So what's your point?
I mean, it is common.
There are parts of it that I do agree with, though. Like, so for example, I don't agree with the idea that they shouldn't be bombing the Gaza Strip. Like, I think that's absurd. I think that the war is going exactly how it should be going. And I think that the death of civilians is an inevitability of war that is. You will never be able to get away from. And so unless you're complaining about the intentional targeting of civilians, there's not really much of an argument there.
Well, I will say this too for Ephraim.
Yeah.
There is a creator within Poll called Wick TV who holds debate panels. I think you should message him and go on. And this is unironic. I think it would actually be like a lot of the people he has on are fucking boring these days because he's kind of like Fortress Art and burn all his bridges. But I think that if you go and debate politics there, it would be genuinely interesting content, and I think you'd enjoy it. So you should check
you know what? I think I will. So that's all. I was going to say good night and good luck. I guess Gallagher can end his stream if he wants, or he can continue it. I can't stop him.
I know.
Wait, we're not going to do questions?
Yeah, I was going to say, I know normally.
Yeah, because Monstrous ruined
Well,
it.
hold on. I have a solution. Okay. I will let people come in and ask questions. I'll give out the StreamYard link. I'm not going to let it be fucking chaos. We'll have one person come in at a time and ask the questions they want, and then they can leave. And we can just do that until everyone is questioned out. If that's okay with you.
Okay. Well, I see Sin wants to ask a question. So what is your question, Sin, and where do I go to hear this?
How about I'm going to jump out of here, and I'm going to post the StreamYard Lab invite, and then you guys
StreamYard Lab.
Whatever it's called.
I think you can just move to Outback, right?
Or,
it's just
but I also kind of just don't want like 1,000 people talking over each other. I think that's like annoying.
I mean,
where I can control that a little easier in StreamYards.
No, I just think it's gay. Like I think I did pretty decent in this debate.
Yeah.
Love you, buddy.
Hold on, I'm gonna.
You're just gay.
Share the invite now. Fuck. How do I even do that? Vlad?
And I think murder is wrong is like the worst take.
Oh, never mind. I figured it out. So
okay. Well, I will let you continue. I'm gonna dip as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well,
I've had my questions.
When are we gonna have our debate?
Well, foreskin debate.
Yeah.
Soon we'll do that. I don't think we'll disagree. Like,
what do you mean? You're like
bad.
Yeah. No, I think it's fine. I think removing foreskins is a necessary thing. It should be law.
I hate you so much. This is why I interrupted your fucking debate.
Yeah, no, it should be law. Like, I think you should be forced to lose your foreskin by punishment of death.
I think if you lose the debate, you have to buy a tugger.
At the what?
Buy a tugger. It's a device for regrowing your foreskin.
Oh, that. No, I'm not going to lose this debate.
Oh, well.
Okay. Because you know why? Because I got my foreskin removed. That's why I'll win.
Well, I'm gonna jump off of here, so no one will be able to hear you guys talking.
Have a good night, Beckett.
Yeah. Have a good wherever the time it is over there in the United Kingdom. Where they
Why don't you just post it in the actual server?
Wow, that's such a good idea that I actually did it already. I did it to you so it wouldn't get buried. I sent one to you in DMs, and I put, how it's already, because Ephraim already is trying to join. So I'll see you there. Holy Jesus. Fucking, wow. That was definitely interesting. how do I let him in? Ephraim is trying to get in, and I don't know how. Oh, add to stage. There's Vlad, and there's Ephraim with the OBS symbol.
Okay, hello. I have no idea what. So does anybody have any questions? Is anybody here?
No one's joined yet. I'm gonna post the link in my YouTube chat too, so people can
Okay, well in that case, I'm gonna be right back.
Okay. I don't think you did that bad. There was like a thing I wanted to say to Beckett, because like I honestly believe like I think Islam definitely is a lot more radical than a lot of other religions. I think like, yeah, you can sit there and like post in individually like pins in timelines on religions and be like, what about this point in time where they were super radical? But I mean, like, I think that's kind of irrelevant to the current topic that like right now Islam is currently the most radical, and it's definitely like intensified by the fact that most Middle Eastern countries don't really have a separation of church and state, right? As a matter of fact, like the countries in the Middle East that are the most like prosperous are the ones that are like becoming a little bit more westernized. Like look at Dubai, look at Qatar, where by the way they're hosting like the World Cup and stuff like that. You mentioned Kuwait, the Kurdistan region of Iraq. Like these are all like Western embracing like areas and countries that are becoming a lot more prosperous, and you're seeing a lot less war and hate crimes being like committed there. Are they still like as good as like I don't know, like a lot of European countries or North American countries in terms of like where they are? No, not really, but I mean they're a lot better in my opinion. I don't know if you agree with that.
Sure.
Okay, I'm back.
Yeah. No, I was going on like kind of a rant where I was like basically going over a lot of what like Beckett was saying. Like I do believe that like you can sit there and look at a timeline of every religion and point out a period where they were like radicalized. But I think that's kind of irrelevant to like the current state of the world. Like you can sit there and posture 1,000 reasons why the Middle East is a little, or Islam in particular is more radicalized than other religions. But I think at the end of the day, it doesn't like change the fact that they're probably, or at least viewed by the current.
Joined yet?
No, nobody has joined yet, which is
I think we have to accept the fact that literally nobody gives a shit.
Well, I was really expecting Emla to jump in here, I'm not gonna lie.
Oh God, oh no.
Like she usually has a lot to say about stuff like this, but like what I was like, I don't know. I thought that it was just interesting. Oh wait, someone is trying to join. Oh God, who is it? Buddha Homer. I'm gonna let Buddha Homer in. All right, Buddha Homer, you are now live. Your camera was on for a little bit there. Are you there? Why does it sound like someone's fucking eating?
Because hello? I was eating.
Oh God, like your mic sensitivity. It was like a fucking ASMR for a minute there.
Oh, my apologies. I don't know how mic sensitivity works on Streamlab.
Yeah, I don't know either. But it sounds like Buddha Homer has fixed his microphone.
So, Buddha Homer, what would you like to say?
Nothing. I just was interested in listening to this.
God.
I'm sorry.
I am live streaming it, so if you're interested in seeing it, you can actually just watch it from my YouTube channel.
Oh, I didn't know that, man.
Yeah. So yeah.
Shit.
If you click on my Discord name, wherever I posted the link, you can actually go and find my YouTube channel there. Right now, I was just trying to see if there was anybody who wanted to do like a question panel.
Oh shit, my bad. I didn't know that you were streaming.
Yeah, no. Yeah. It's all good. Like,
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll go.
Nope, it's all good. It looks like Beckett is just trying to get back in. Okay, I'm gonna boot you and let Beckett in. I think Beckett might have been triggered by like something I said. All right, Lyle Convoy, you are now live.
Yeah, no, I was just watching. I wanted to listen in, so I thought I'd.
Oh my God!
Wait! I don't think you're the real Lyle Convoy.
What a troll! What an absolute legend!
But no, like, look, the truth is, though, there was no way that there was going to be a resolution to that debate. To make this very clear, it was not going to happen.
Yeah.
The goal was to drag it out for as long as humanly possible. That was what the goal was.
Well,
that's
I
why
guess
I interrupted you. I was like, it's 2 hours. What the fuck are we done?
In that regard, I think at the end of the day, everybody won and nobody won.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing is for me is like, as I said, like I'm like vehemently on Israel's side here, and that position is never going to. I don't think there's very many people that are going to concede to my position at all, on the on the other side of the political spectrum, I should say, on the issue. I mean, so yeah, like I just don't think it's going to happen. And my actual take, I recognize is like a pipe dream. So like, fuck it, like whatever. I don't really care what Israel does. I just want the whole thing done and over with forever.
Mm-hmm.
So that in 2037, I'm not having a debate on the internet of Israel versus Palestine.
Oh, you don't have to worry about that. Another war will happen, and then everyone will forget that Israel and Palestine was ever a thing.
Don't worry, Gilded. I'll set a calendar date, so New Year's Day 2037.
Gilded's not going to be alive in 2037.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, he's probably not going to be. He's probably not even going to live to see 2025.
True.
But you know who will be alive? Joe Biden, and he'll be president in 2037.
Holy shit, dude's going to be a cyborg.
But here's my question: will man still be alive in the year 2525?
Yes. I was going to make a Rush reference, but nobody would get it. I was going to say, would man be alive in 2112? That's the real question, but... Yeah, no, but nobody would get that reference, so whatever.
That's more reason to make it, not less.
Whatever.
I kind of want to see you make a podcast with Ephraim.
No.
Again, I said I'd be willing to do this another time. Maybe every now and again we can have these kinds of conversations if people are interested.
Look, I don't even like debating politics, to be honest with you.
Why did you do this?
Because I said any topic, and everything he mentioned was political.
Well, yeah, because we've already kind of discussed
topics?
everything like related to drama and stuff. I figured, you know what? Let's talk about something you haven't talked about because you said you'd be willing to talk about it.
Well, you know what would have actually been amazing? Because you know how, like, when Gilded gets really passionate about anything he talks about, he, like, shits all over everyone's opinion and becomes very aggressive. Like, I wanted to see, like, Ephraim and Gilded argue over which was the best starter Pokemon and just like, have Gilded be like, everyone who chooses Charmander should be gassed alive.
No,
or something
what
like
I would
that.
say instead is anybody who plays Pokemon is a pedophile, and that would be it.
There you go. See, that's a good debate. Does playing Pokemon make you a pedophile?
I was just going to say, and this will be the last thing I say before I leave. Gallagher, I legitimately thought you were going to stop after when he gets really passionate, he shits. And I just imagined Gilded, like, getting diarrhea from passionate opinions.
I'm not Doodle Tones.
Oh, shit.
Okay.
Okay, well, actually, my question is, I'm confused, actually. I do have a question. This is a good one. What is your stance on Doodle Tones? It seems like you guys have, like, a very, how do I put it, toxic allegiance or whatever. Like one day you hate each other, then you like each other, then you hate each other.
I never hated her. That's a bit of a misconception. One that I kind of played into. What it was is back in the day, I was very much an outsider to all of this. And from the outside, I never hated Doodle Tones, but I did have criticisms of her that I ended up voicing. And then I just kind of ended up gaining a bit of a reputation as someone who criticizes her, which got telephoned into somebody who dislikes her.
Okay, so do you like her or not? God damn it.
I think her content's usually good. I think as a person, she's fine to talk to.
Okay, you have brain rot. Be gone.
Oh, you were going to say that eventually anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, politics aside, this is even more brain rot. Like, it's like meta levels of brain rot.
Yeah.
Like, it's like brain rot within brain rot.
I'm going to make it even more brain rot. Doodle Tones is the first key doodle of the Senate.
Ooh.
Well, she isn't even around anymore and hasn't been.
Neither is Fursky Doodle.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
No, there's actually, I hate to disappoint you, Ephraim. I really, really fucking do. But there's like a person in Pooh City or Pootopia, whatever the fuck Vlad rebranded it as for the 19th time.
It was Pootopia. It's only been 2 names, and Pootopia is the second name.
I'm pretty sure it was called Poo City before
that. It was
that.
never, ever called Poo City. It was called Pleb City.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, I was right. Anyway, there's a person in there who's like fucking obsessed with doodle tones, and I guess there's like some weird, obscure deviant art ripoff that Doodle Tones logs into, and it's one of those like weird websites where like it publicly records whenever you logged in. So every single time Doodle Tones logs in, they post the fucking screen cap like, "Oh my god, guys, look, Doodle Tones is still online. They fucking lied. They're still here." And it's just like really fucking obsessive and weird.
Yeah, I'm not touching those people with a 49.5 foot pole, if that's okay, Gallagher.
I mean, I'm just telling you the truth.
I mean, yeah, like I have retards in my server. Who would have thought?
Hey.
Aside from Turish, even though he's Canadian.
He's French Canadian.
Yeah, true. He's like Beckett, but Canadian.
Finish your thoughts.
He's not from British Columbia.
Also, ew.
But no, yeah, no. See, what I was surprised by, and the reason I just went with Israel Palestine is because I was expecting you to go through my old shit and then find something morally abhorrent and then try to debate me on it. That's what I was surprised by.
I mean, that's just too obvious. That's something that I think you'd expect anybody to do.
Yeah, which is why I turned the Israel debate into a morally abhorrent argument.
Yeah.
Because I had to. I couldn't help myself.
Yeah,
okay. I gotta
are the worst.
Have a good rest of the stream, boys.
No, you cannot go play that game. Stop playing that game.
Thank you for streaming it, Gallagher.
Yeah, thank me for not like fucking it up all the way. I fucked it up a little bit.
Well, time, place.
I have one question for Gallagher, and this is the only thing I've ever wanted to know about you.
Yes.
Are you actually the comedian from the 80s?
Yes, I have risen from the dead.
I knew it.
He's actually dead. He also actually got into a huge legal battle with his brother because his brother was stealing his gimmick.
It's true.
So there's a little bit of Gallagher thing there. Damn, I'm actually just really fucking surprised Enla didn't want to come in here. I was really expecting her to be
not.
You used incorrect grammar in this one part. How does that have to do with Africa and BLM and whatever else you said that was funny?
Okay. I'm not surprised. She's not going to be in here with Ephron. Like, are you nuts?
Oh, what? Oh, they hate each other?
No, they're in love. They don't want to show it.
No. I'm putting that down right now.
I know you're going to attempt to say that what I just said was disinformation, but it's not. It's the truth. It's an alternative fact.
See, what I don't understand is why am I one of the few people who would rather be in a call with someone they fucking hate than someone they like? Like, I love.
Okay, fine then. Bye.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I just really enjoy being in a call with people who hate me. I have a lot
being hate fucked by men.
Yeah. No, I don't do that thing where it's oh my god, a person I don't like, let me not, unless they're just objectively annoying to be around. There are some people who I can't stand talking to them. When Fox Azure is drunk, I just fucking can't stand being in the same call as him. But like normally, like if there's someone who has a big beef with me, like dude, if I could find a way to get to a voice chat with Brian Mullins, the Fox dude, it would be like fucking winning the lottery.
Oh yeah, I saw you challenged him to a debate on the roast game, and I want to see that because I am also a fellow roast game fan.
Yeah. It took me so long to figure out what the roast game actually was.
United through children's butt meat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Holy shit. Bizarre.
So it was actually funny because the roast game experienced recently its first retcon.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So originally, the reason why people were eating their own children was because they didn't believe in Christmas, right? Like that was the whole thing. Now the reason why people ate their own children, and I wish I was making this up. This is actually the reason. Okay, it was because in I think he said 1993, some company bought the Hallmark Channel and replaced daytime Christian television shows with the Muppets, which caused a cultural freakout similar to the Satanic Panic of the 70s. And caused parents to like eat their own children because they were upset that they could no longer watch their daytime Christian television.
I hate that I know this now.
Here's what I want to know. Does he have the first bit of like reason to believe this?
I don't know. But he definitely believes this.
I know. I've seen the fact that he wrote 3 different Urban Dictionary entries for the roast game.
It's higher than that now. There's like 6 or 7 if you look up the roast game theory, and there's more than 3 now. Soul Buddy says, Ephraim, would you want Gilded as a friend?
Not really. No.
Debatable.
Damn.
Based.
I don't think you want. Here's the thing. This isn't the only reason, but a big one is I don't think he'd want that either.
Yeah, I don't really think about that stuff like that, like ever. Like I don't think I've ever in my life ever thought, gee, oh golly gosh, I want this person as a friend. Like what usually happens, actually, is I get raped with that label. Like somebody just like, we're friends now. That's literally what happens.
Yeah, no.
But I consider myself a roast gameologist. Like I have a degree in the roast game theory because of how autistically I've studied the roast game.
A degree.
It's actually really interesting. So if you look at the timeline of the roast game, it started the year before Brian was born, and it ended the summer of Brian's birthday, which is interesting because Brian was born in May, right? And the reason why this is interesting is because if you look at the what he calls the numbers by the decade, which is really weird because it only lasted for like 1.8 decades. The roast game cutoff for when they eat children is 17, right? So newborn to 17 is when they eat children. I don't imagine like newborn baby having a large serving size because he does talk about like caloric intake and serving sizes and stuff like that. But the interesting thing is that the roast game ended in the summer of 2016, which was when Brian turned 18. Why the roast game ended in the summer of 2016 is beyond me.
Makes sense to me. I don't know why you're like thinking into it. It makes perfect sense.
I would have said it ended in the winter of 2017 because that would have been the last year the roast game actually happened. But just really weird that it ended the same exact year he turned 18. And by the way, he attributed the ending of the roast game, Ephraim, to your favorite political figure, our Lord and Savior Donald Trump.
Nice.
Okay, here's what I don't get. So the roast game began in 98, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but didn't this company buy a television network or something in '93?
I'm not sure. It's a relatively new change to the roast game, so I am not sure.
Well, anyway, I'm going to interrupt this because you interrupted me when I was trying to say something and brought the roast game back up, which was like really gay and annoying, and I don't care. Because the only acceptable answer to the roast game is no. But to answer Soul Buddy's question, like give a legitimate answer to the question, the reason Ephraim would say no is because of one word: optics. That's the real answer. I'm optics cancer. There you go.
Yay.
Yeah. And Ephraim is optics chemotherapy. They're just sworn enemies.
Really.
Wait, does that mean I'd improve his image if we started hanging
No,
out?
it means that you guys would just fight each other forever.
No, that's not what it means either. Basically, what I'm suggesting is that one of the reasons why a lot of people from Lyo's sphere of influence would refuse to, be quote unquote friends with me is primarily because I would make them look worse by association because I am optics cancer. Or another way to put it is I'm a loose cannon. I say what I want when I want in whichever way that I want and don't particularly give a shit about the consequences.
True.
I can also confirm this.
So I think everything's been said. I've been live for nearly 3 hours now.
So I was answering for you. Are you saying I'm wrong or right?
I'm saying that the main reason, again, just literally comes down to I don't think you want to be friends with me, and plus I don't think we get along very well.
I get along with everybody. What do you mean? I get along with all sorts of people.
Even Canadians.
Yeah. Like, actually, in fact, point of fact, Queen Seraphine, or not, it wasn't Queen Seraphine, sorry, Baiji started all this shit, and I get along with Baiji fine.
Yes. Anyway, internet.
Yeah,
or
and I
internet.
want Gallagher to die, and I get along with Gallagher, okay?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I don't know who evil internet gangster is, but I just
It's North.
It's who?
North.
Oh.
Yeah.
Guy with the lisp from Canada or something.
Well, I took care of that.
Why?
Who?
I wanted to hear what he had to say.
I brought.
I just wanted to ask one question, and this is reference to Ephraim. Do you think I care about the interview or debate or whatever it was? I don't know.
What?
I'm asking that to Ephraim. Is he muted? Oh my fucking god!
I don't think your question made any sense.
It's a reference to his video about me.
Oh shit!
Whatever, Ephraim. Have fun. Go away.
Okay.
Wait, I said Ephraim. You fuck.
To quote Rosa Ramsey, I don't know much.
Yeah, I was saying, like, Ephraim seemed to be muted because he was going to walk away or something, and then somehow Nerf thought I was talking to him.
Well, you really Well, you missed it. Nerf got in here and he was like, Ephraim, did you think I cared about the interview? And then left because he thought that Gilded bullied him out.
No, I just got up to walk just to do something for a second.
Nerf, come back. Oh,
now you know what? This is a question zone. What was your question, Nerf?
He said, did you think I cared about the interview? He left already, by the way.
I have no idea if he did or didn't. I do know, as I pointed out before, that he watches my content despite not caring about it. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. I'm gonna say good night and good luck. Talk to you guys later. Or see
All
you
right.
later.
Yeah, I literally just said earlier, be gone, and then you came back. So, and then Nerf thought I was talking to him. So.
Well, now I will be gone. You used Ephron be gone. Goodbye.
Bye.
Is Nerf the guy with the squirrel arms? Like the flying squirrel arms?
No,
Now
that's
you-
me. No.
And now you can invite Inla.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. I want my brain cells to genocide themselves. Soul Buddy says, so who hates Jews? Was it Gilded? Insert I hate everyone equally meme here. No, Vlad was pro Israel, and it seemed like Ephraim's stance was less pro Palestine and more like anti war and anti collateral damage.
See, one thing I forgot to mention, and I just totally got distracted, was I was going to say, wouldn't you consider the response from Israel a form of self-defense?
Hmm.
And I zoned out. I got, like, really tired.
Yeah.
Before
My favorite part
started.
was when Monstrous, who clearly wasn't paying attention, just like randomly interrupted to be like, "Why are you guys talking about Black Lives Matter? This is supposed to be Israel versus Palestine."
It always comes back to them Negroes.
Oh shit, dude! Keemstar's gonna cancel you now because you said the N-word.
I mean, I'll just call him that. It's fine.
Yeah. Nerf says the thing is the debate should have never existed if Ephraim is making the point of anti-war then support of Palestine. I mean, I think he was just arguing.
He wasn't really supporting Hamas or the government or anything. He was trying to like advocate for the civilians.
Yeah. That's why I said his position was like pro anti-collateral.
Yeah, which I disagree with that position because I don't think the people in Palestine are just these innocent little nobodies that are responsible for nothing, and they're just little children that totally aren't being brainwashed into killing people, right? Like, how many people did how many Nazi youth did America kill, right? You don't see anybody bitching about that, so...
Probably. Like, I think that it would have been a good point to bring up the whole self-defense thing, because it's like, what should Israel do? Should they just let like Hamas bomb them and not do anything back? Like, I think that might have been like an interesting direction to see where like the conversation was going.
I did mention that last part actually.
Oh, okay.
And his response was like, if I remember right, he said it was something like peace talks and sanctions and shit like that, and a bunch of like cringe gay shit that isn't something that works in reality.
But like the issue seems like that like Hamas just doesn't want peace. So it seems like it would be kind of like weird to try to have peace talks with like people who want you dead and wiped off the face of the earth.
Well, that's the thing too. Is it like, and I guess I could have hammered this home harder. This isn't like a war, like over territory. This is just the Palestinians just want the Jews dead. Like that's it. That's the end of the discussion. There's no significant debate there. So like it's not like one of these things where they're like, oh, I just want territory or whatever. It's not a territorial dispute. It's just we want to kill Jews, and that's the end of it's it, full stop. And at that point, like there's no real way of having a peaceful agreement with somebody who actually just wants you dead. And that was kind of a point I was getting at before, that like everybody that lives in Palestine or the Gaza Strip just would want Ephraim dead because he's white, because he's from the West, and that's all the real reasons they need. That's it.
Is he a fagula?
Well, and he's allegedly gay.
Oh,
but
okay.
but all the other reasons would come first. Like they just hate you because you fucking exist, and nobody can like comprehend that concept. That like, and he was going on a rant about people are usually like, you know, more reserved, and it's like, no, actually they're not. Like, not in these countries, they're not. They don't fucking like you. They hate you. They want you dead. In a perfect world, you like there would be no West. It would all be the Middle East.
Insert. But Vlad, don't you think that maybe it's like our fault they think that because of our influence in their countries?
The open air prison argument that Soul Buddy brought up here is like an insanely like retarded argument, because it's actually a fancy way of saying we gave Palestine their own, or the Palestinian Arabs their own territory. We gave them the Gaza Strip, free to do with what they will. Israel completely moved out of the Strip. And what did they do with that? Well, they decided to alienate their two immediate neighbors, Jordan and Egypt. And so, like, if they are in an open air prison, quote unquote, then it's purely the fault of them. But furthermore, they could have been taking all of that international aid that they've been receiving, and they could have used said international aid to build infrastructure, water, food, electricity, etc., healthcare, and they don't do any of that. All they do is use that money to stockpile weapons, and just in the effort of killing Jews, because that's all they care about.
I saw
at the cost of everything else.
I saw a really funny video the other day.
So if they are in an open air prison, they're the ones that built it. Okay, now you can go. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were done because there was like a little pause there for a second. But no, I thought it was funny. I watched a video where these guys dropped, or like the U.S. military or the Israel military, someone dropped like these American Army rations into the Gaza Strip, like MREs or something.
That?
Yeah, and they were like halal and everything, and they didn't eat them. They thought they were gross and left them there. So I thought that was interesting. Like, I don't know, if I was in a war torn like fucking DMZ, I probably would eat that no matter how bad it was. You know what I mean?
I sent Inla the link, by the way.
Now she's gonna come because she feels forced. Nerf said the thing is to do. Oh wait, I already read that. Never mind.
Yeah.
Oh fuck, I'm tired.
But no, it's just one of those things where the debate wasn't really going to go anywhere from the start, and I didn't really want it to. But the thing is that like I think siding with the Arabs is just insane, though. Like I just think that's nuts. And I don't need like 200 years of history to look at October 7th and say that deserves retribution.
Yeah.
I just don't need any of that information. I don't even. I actually just don't even care.
I thought it was kind of like crazy, or not crazy, but a little bit weird that Beckett was like, well, if that wasn't your opinion, then why did you debate it, or something along that line. Like he acted like it was wildly weird that you were debating a point you didn't necessarily agree with. But I was like gonna counter. It was hard for me to get a word in there because of like how passionate the discussion was at the time. But I was like, don't debate clubs do stuff like that all the time? Like, here's this position, defend it. You have a week to like come up with an argument against your opponent. Like, one time for school, I had to write a persuasive APA essay about whether or not America was justified in using Agent Orange in Vietnam. And though I disagree that they should have used it, I still wrote my essay that America was justified because I wanted to like really challenge my own like thought process. and I still made like a 98 on the essay. The only reason why I lost points because I didn't format my citations.
So
correctly.
there's a saying for this.
Uh-huh.
It's whenever you come up with an idea you think is good, try to find ways to prove yourself wrong as opposed to proving yourself right. Also, this guy said, what about the people that claimed Israel wants to continue the war while Palestinians want a ceasefire? Number one, how many ceasefires do we need? Every time they get a ceasefire, every single time, this happens all over again. So, Israel probably does want to continue the war until Hamas is gone, and probably the other extreme tribes that are in there. So, yeah, I mean, like, I don't blame them. They're right next door, right? And this is the thing that bothers me, too. Like, it drives me nuts. If you had a neighbor that constantly shot guns at your house, right? I mean, eventually, you're going to want to shoot the guy back. And if you shot at the guy back and then you get called the piece of shit for doing it, that's kind of shitty.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
But no, it's just I don't think a ceasefire would work anymore. It has to be total victory or nothing.
Yeah, kind of. I'm surprised. I'm actually really surprised that the two-state solution argument never popped up in the debate either, because you actually have a super passionate stance about that.
I was waiting for it, and it never came up. And that is that, like, we've tried a two-state solution a billion times. Like, I mean, how many times does this need to be brought up? Like, it's never happened. The Palestine rejects every attempt. The very first thing that they tried doing is a two-state solution. Very first thing.
It just feels like a two-state solution is like a middle ground fallacy almost. It's like putting a Black Panther member in a room with a neo-Nazi and saying, now you two get along, this is the solution. You know what I mean?
Yeah, what I argued was annex the region, turn it into Israeli territory, and then over time, if they're, proven to be less unstable, maybe they can acquire independence, right? But they have to earn it. That was my argument. Like, and that is sort of like a pseudo two-state solution, right? But the difference is it requires a lot more time. People are expecting somebody to roll in there and then them sign an agreement that they'll have two-state solution, and then it'll just magically end the war.
Yeah.
It's like, no, they don't want the land. They don't even care about Israel as a territory. They just don't want the Jews there. Like, it's nothing
just
to
really
state
weird.
or land or anything.
Yeah, it's really weird that people think like if Israel goes down this weird like wish list and checks all the blocks, then Hamas will be like not fighting. They're like think that Hamas is being forced into doing what they're doing. Like, no, they're only doing this because they're being oppressed into doing this. They don't want to do this. And I'm just like, I just don't think that's true. I can't remember any time I've ever seen like a radicalized group, especially a religious radicalized group, and always thought like they don't want to do this. They're only doing this because they have to.
Yeah, well, this argument wouldn't work if we were talking about Germany. I mean, if I talk like look at how much I could sit here and be like, yeah, Germany was massively oppressed by the majority of Europe after the events of World War I, and that was largely like a major influencing factor as to why Nazi Germany became a thing and why the Holocaust even happened at all in the first place was because of that agreement, right? But if I said that and then try to use that as a means to like excuse the Holocaust, I'd be fucking called crazy, right? But we can use that same logic to then somehow justify all the unstable and insane nonsense in the going on in the Middle East, especially going on in Israel, Palestine. Like, no, I don't think that logic works. You can like, I think that's just insane. I think that even if it's true that one thing led to another thing, that doesn't negate the fact that these people are responsible for their own decisions in the wake of that information.
Yeah, true. It almost be like saying like we shouldn't have went to war with Japan because the only reason why they attacked Pearl Harbor is because we were putting like embargoes on them for all their atrocities they were committing in China. Which is true. We were embargoing the fucking shit out of them for all the bad things that they were doing. And their response was like, well, if you're going to keep annexing us, or not annexing, but if you're going to keep like, restricting our trade and stuff like that, we're just going to attack you. No one would ever say that we shouldn't have attacked Japan. They were like genociding like millions of people during that time period.
Fun fact: nobody actually cares what Japan did to China. Okay, like almost fucking nobody even knows about it, let alone gives a shit.
Yeah,
which is weird. Like if you talk to somebody about World War II and mention China was at war Japan was at war with China since before World War II even started, like fucking half the people would be like, wait, what? Really? Whoa, no way.
Yeah, and like all they were like worse than Nazi Germany when it came to like human experimentation and stuff like that. Like they were like lighting children on fire just to see what would happen and stuff. It was actually kind of crazy what they were. But it made anything that America did to the Native Americans look like nothing. Frankly, it was
kind of
really
fucked
fucking
up.
bad. Yeah, and so like maybe now people don't really know a lot about that, but like back in the day, it was like an optical thing where it was just like kind of like what we're doing to Russia right now. You know what I mean? Like, oh, all this Ukraine stuff is bad. We're just gonna fucking sanction the living shit out of you until your economy collapses.
But I just think the most insane take was this idea that humans are not innately selfish and warmongering, right? Like I don't know, that just really blew my mind.
Like there's actually like a baked in like aggressive gene that like not just humans but like all animals have, because it's like a survival thing. Like
and he died.
That's a shame.
Yeah, because Gallagher just can't get good internet.
That is an oddity.
Yeah, speaking of Jews.
Jewish internet?
No, just him being cheap.
Ah.
In fact, I'm pretty sure it's just like he's not even paying for the internet, if I remember correctly. So it's like complimentary internet. And you know what that means? It is poop. Oh, wait, he's completely fucking gone.
Oh.
Well, that means one of two things. Either the stream is going to keep going or it's going to completely crash.
The stream is still on.
For the moment.
Yes. I'm just driving this new truck I found through the forest.
Why is there like an entire living room behind the forest?
I have no idea. Like I think Gallagher has like some sort of green screen going, and I don't know what that picture is. Because I sure as hell don't have a piano.
Yeah, what it looks like is like one of the default images for like background images for
oh, okay. There's a checkbox for if I have a green screen or not. Okay, now it's okay. No virtual background. Oh, it's my setting.
Oh, okay. Okay, good.
Oh, it's something I could set up. Holy cow.
Yay.
I mean, I wouldn't mind having a piano, but I definitely do not have a piano.
Yeah, he just messaged me and said his internet died.
I wonder if it's VDSL2 or GPON. Or like just generally what architecture he has available in that area.
Yeah, he just needs to actually pay for internet.
Yeah. I mean, our regional ISPs, I assume there's some sort of right of internet, but yeah, our regional ISPs would never let that fly. Who the hell gets free internet? How that?
So some apartment complexes and shit like that have complimentary internet.
Oh yes, God, ugh.
So do hotels. Some hotels do it too.
Yes.
And gated communities also do that. Some of them.
Gated communities?
Yeah.
I'm actually very curious about how that would work for a gated community.
Oh, some gated communities also have their own churches, their own libraries, even their own little stores and shit. Like a little micro fucking community that's basically just there to keep out black people because that's what they're really for. Okay, just to be honest. Because that's the only explanation I can come up with. Because everyone I've been to has just been pure white to the most disturbing degree possible, like stuck in the 1950s white.
Oh, that reminds me. I went to the park today, and one of my neighbors was from Brazil, but he was from a German Mennonite colony.
Oh.
Yeah. The guy kind of looked like Giga Chad. It was weird.
Yeah, that is
in the
weird.
face. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I would totally end this stream right now if I had the ability.
Yes.
Because it's basically dead.
It is.
At this moment. Gallagher was really dumb that he thought that people were going to actually come in here and ask questions. It's dumb.
No, I came in for truck. I came in to play truck game.
Right.
Yes. But yeah.
Wait, he could do this on mobile. What is his deal? I don't understand what the fuck he's doing. It's confusing.
Free internet. What the fuck? I couldn't do that.
Yeah, I mean, he could pay for internet if he wanted to, but he won't do it. So,
I mean, I pay less than most people for internet, and I have gigabit.
I don't have gigabit, but I'm paying $85 a month for 50 down.
I am, God, how much am I paying? And this is in Canadian. I think for all my services, TV included, because when they bundle that crap, it makes it cheaper. It's always a scam. I think I'm paying $115 for some crappy TV services and asynchronous gigabit, so gig up, gig down.
Yeah.
Which was cheaper than Gallagher's back.
Wow.
Oh, I was actually doing that before you messaged me, and also I'm not stupid for thinking that people were going to come in here and ask questions. I thought only one specific person was going to come in.
Sure. Cope.
Vlad is just channeling his inner Foxager and being like, well, at least I'm smarter than Gallagher.
I mean, that's not really a hard goal to accomplish, really.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll be right back. I have to go pee on dirt.
Damn it! I want to end the fucking stream. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna end it while he's peeing.
Okay, then just end it. Then just end it. Then go.
I'm gonna end it like I'm gonna end our friendship.
The fucking stream. Do it.
Thank you, Tersh, for co-hosting. You have been a delight.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for being Canadian and playing Truck Game. All right, I don't have an end for this. I don't have like an end animation yet for the stream because this is all so impromptu. So, good night and thanks for
literally played the same one for the end.
I don't even have it on my phone.
Just click preset. Oh, you don't have it on your phone. Okay. Oh, you're on your phone. Oh, okay. In the stream.
Yeah. Thanks for the 10 subs. I guess.
I hope all the Palestinians get viciously raped.
Yikes.
Repeatedly.